Good morning, all of you, and welcome. The Committee on Zoning, will you please come to order? At this point in time, I would like to welcome committee members Cordero, DeSantos Tan, Kia Aina, and Councilmember Wire. And also attendance is Councilmember Tupola. I have to go through this exercise every time we have our public hearing, and let me read it out once more for all of you, the general public at large, and the members and the people who are in the council chambers. Although remote oral testimony is being permitted, this is a regular in-person meeting and not a remote meeting by interactive conference technology under the Hawaii Revised Statute Section 92-3.7. Everyone understands HRS, Hawaii Revised Statutes. Under what state law is this? The Hawaii state law. Okay, we're abiding by that state law. Therefore, the meeting will continue notwithstanding loss of audiovisual communication with remote testifiers or loss of the public broadcast of the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways. First, remotely, and secondly, in person in the council chamber. Oral testimony will be allowed when each agenda item is taken up in the following order: remote testimony and in-person testimony in the council chamber. Once more, remote testimony first before the in-person testimony. Before testifying, each person shall state their full name and the agenda item they are testifying on. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation per item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. The following are some friendly reminders and tips. Video conference from a very quiet location if possible. If you are watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your device at the time you are called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. For those who are joining us by telephone only, please press star 9 to indicate your desire to speak. I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number, and when your phone number is called, please press star 6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, we will then proceed to the in-person testimony in the council chamber. Members who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy to all, please turn off all cell phones. So let's proceed on, members, at this point in time, which is to agenda number 1. Resolution 24-23. This resolution approves a conceptual plan for an interim plan development transit project. Once more, an interim plan development transit project proposed by Ikinakea Hokele LLC to allow for the construction of a new 15-story, 200-foot tall hotel building and the renovation of an existing historic warehouse on land zone BMX-4, Business Mix-4, which is a community business mix use district within the downtown neighborhood transit-oriented development plan area. And it is located at 128 North Nimitz Highway, and it is identified as the tax map keys 1-7-002:013, 023, and 050. Those are the 3 tax map keys. Members, please note that we have posted on the agenda a committee draft 1, OCS 2024-0230/3/15/2024 at 2:47 p.m. That was approved by the Committee on Zoning at its meeting on March 6, 2024. A public hearing was held at the council meeting on March 25th, of 2024, and the resolution and proposed committee draft 1 were referred back to the committee for further discussion. Joining us in the council chamber, we have Mr. Patrick Cigarant, the applicant's agent, and standing by remotely, we have Chris and Keegan Flaherty, the applicant, who are available for questions. I have a question for the Deputy Corporation Counsel. First, under the city charter and the revised ordinance of Honolulu, 1/2 of 1% of the estimated real property tax revenues is deposited into the city's affordable housing fund, plus any interest earned on deposits in the fund. There is no prohibition on the deposit of funds from outside sources into the affordable housing fund, but my question is whether it is allowable to deposit the project's community benefits contribution for the affordable housing into the affordable housing fund. That was a question posed by the council member from the district that this project is in. Okay. Okay. Is there anyone from Corporation Counsel to respond to that question? Mr. Pang?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dwayne Pang, Deputy Corporation Counsel. We are looking into that matter. I don't think I can answer that today or right now, but we are looking into that matter. That did come down to our office.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the Corporation Counsel? Maybe we can address this question when we have our final adoption of the measure on third reading. So at this point in time, Mr. Patrick Cigarant, would you like to say a few words on behalf of the project? The applicant's agent. And this is on the committee draft 1.
Good morning, Zoning Committee Chair and members. My name is Patrick Cigarant, agent for Ikanakea Hokele. And we have reviewed CD1 as proposed, and we have no objections to CD1. So we're here for questions or comments.
Okay. Members, any questions for the agent? If there's no questions, thank you very much for a very thorough presentation from the last meeting that we had, and also your thorough response to that question I just posed on the committee draft 1.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you like members to have the applicant also? Is Chris or Keegan? Would you like to say a few words? Oh, press the button.
Good morning, Chair and members. We have no objections at this time. We're excited to move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for Mr. Mr. Flaherty? No, if there is no questions, that's it. Let's move on to the Director of Department of Planning and Permitting, Director Apuna.
Thank you, Chair. We have no objections to the CD1, and we believe this is a good project as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, any questions for the Director? If there is no questions for the Director, let's move on now with the remote testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. At this time, do we have any in-person testimony?
Yes, Chair, we have one standing by.
Okay, we have Ms. Jolie Tokusato. Jolie?
Hi, thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Council. My name is Jolie Tokusato, representing Unite Here Local 5. We stand in support of Reso 2423. We believe the developer has shown real willingness to work with the community on creating a thoughtful project that can play a positive role in revitalizing the downtown Chinatown area. And we have confidence that they will continue to do so. So please pass this measure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions for the testifier, Ms. Tokusato? If not, okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify? Please come forward to the testifier's podium and state your name for the record. Okay, Ms. Yulan Kwok.
Thank you, everyone. I'm very pleased and very happy.
Can you state your name for the
Okay,
record?
Chulan
and what-
Shubert Kwok Chinatown Business and Community Association. We're very excited about this project because it is one dark hole over there that we hope to brighten up. So I'm in full support of this bill, 23-24. Thank you.
Okay, members, any questions for Ms. Yulan Kwok? If not, okay. At this point in time, she was the less in-person testimony. We will have members. We are in discussion. Any discussion on a great project as far as revitalizing Chinatown? If not, the chair recommends that Resolution 2423 be amended to the committee draft 1 posted on the agenda. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a committee draft 1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 24-23, committee draft 1, be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Congratulations, Mr. Sigrin and Mr. Flattery, and best wishes in your particular project for the Chinatown District. Okay, moving on to agenda number 2, Resolution 24-54. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Mitch King to allow for the construction of a farm dwelling to agricultural operations and agricultural structures, which is a barn and greenhouse, on an approximately 365,904 square foot shoreline lot zone AG2. For the general public out there, AG2 is agricultural district 2. It's a general agricultural district located at 68-407 Farrington Highway in Mokuleia and identified as tax map key 6-8-003:047. Members, we have posted to the agenda a proposed committee draft 1 version of the resolution, and for your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. Joining us in the council chamber is Mr. Mark Howland from Whale Environmental Services, the applicant's agent, who will be providing a brief presentation for your information. And the presentation for the general public at large is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 139 of 2024. Okay, Mr. Howland.
Hello, council members, chair. Thank you for having me here today. This is a little bit different than normally presented since it's a agricultural presentation rather than the usual residential ones we see you with. We basically always use a particular process to make sure that agricultural development meets the needs and goals of DOA, the Oahu General Plan, the North Shore Sustainability Communities Plan, that it's true viable use of a property as ag. This is a process that people usually use the biological design sphere, as you see here, where a project is distilled. We reach out to the applicant, find out what their interests are, whether or not they fit what the INA is telling them to do. As Councilwoman Esther always says, listen to the land. This is something we feel is important to distill the information into something that's viable, to translate it into documentation that can be presented, to discover what ideas are good and what ideas are not good for agricultural development, emulate nature in its design, and then eventually bring it to good people at DPP. We particularly thank Jordan for the work he's put in on this, and then also to you people as a zoning committee who get to evaluate and then release it to the public. The proposed action location, has Council Chair said, is TMK 168-003-047. This is the conceptual plan for the farm development. As you can see, the farmhouse has been located outside the more dangerous flood zone. It's put an X rather than the AE. And the land in the front, which has more suitable soils for farming, is where the greenhouses, the grow out beds are proposed. Mitch King grew up in Haleiwa. he had to move over to Indiana to run his parents' black walnut farm, where there's 100 acres of black walnut that's shipped around the country, including here to Hawaii. And he wants to return to Haleiwa and grow shoreline erosion plants, particularly resorts, hotels, projects that require native Hawaiian plants for shoreline stabilization. This is, he feels, is a strong market for, and with his expertise in the lumber industry, is something he's proposing to do. Has it's over $500,000, obviously it's an SMA major. We've developed a farm design in the environmental disclosure documents, a full, complete farm design where the property's been evaluated for things like salinity, nutrients, phosphates, irrigation needs, so forth and so on. These lots are across from the entrance of Dillingham Ranch, which back in the 1960s ran a sand replenishment operation, bringing the sand to downtown locations like Waikiki Beach and other locations. All these 4 owners on these 8 or 9 acre lots across from Dillingham Ranch were required to sign affidavits that they no longer will conduct any sand mining. Even though the soil maps indicate Jaca sands, much of it's been replaced over the years. The sand mining was digged down to 8 or 9 feet. So cultural concerns are something that is not as strong due to the fact of the damage that was done years ago. This is the location. There are 4 lots right along the entrance across the street from Dillingham Ranch. This is the 3rd one. Back in December, you heard the 2nd one was the Alston family with Papakia Ranch, and you granted an SMA major approval for that landscape and farm. The middle property is an SMA minor for the Bendons that Jordan has approved and be forthcoming. And then this last one along the residential properties to the east is Mitch King's, outlined in blue. These are photos of the site. As you can see, outside of the windbreak that was planted years ago to great detriment to many farmers of ironwood, most of it's grassed. We've asked Mitch King, per the guidance of U.S. Fish and Wildlife, to take down the original barbed wire fence that was surrounding the property to protect wildlife, particularly avian species that can get tangled in the fence. So that's been taken down and be replaced with slat wood. This is the sea level rise maps of the vegetation line and the coastal erosion line in red, the vegetation line in green, and the balloon is the lot in question. As you can see, most of it's confined to the shoreline setback. Generally, in preparing these, especially for farms, you have to do what's called siting parameters. You have to make sure you're in the correct zoning. You have to make sure that things like structures of bonds and dwellings can be flood mitigated by elevation or foundation changes, while crops is much more difficult to mitigate against flood damage. So things are cited based on land use suitability, as indicated by the Department of Agriculture, sea level rise change, zoning maps of flood zones. As you can see, we try to always make sure we fit. When you hear residential subdivisions, the primary use of the land is a house. When you hear conservation district hearings, the primary concern is preservation of natural resources. When you hear agricultural, the driving force of the zoning is agricultural use. So we feel that's a driving force that maintains the design and use of the property. And it fits with Chapter 343, which says the environmental review is given the appropriate consideration in decision-making along with economic, technical considerations and zoning use. So a farm design does give particular consideration land suitability for crop production. In this case, we've placed the crops in their best locales. Some soils are still not adequate for some of the plants being planned, so growing beds will be used with soil amendments inside the raised growing beds for some of the particularly shrub species that are used for shoreline erosion. There's very little competition for this particular type of operation. There is a large nursery in Wamanalo who does sell some shoreline erosion plants, but not all of them, and they cannot meet the market demand themselves, and therefore, this is a niche market that we feel will be successful. Our objectives on this is to any species that can take salinity conditions, such as Kamani, Napaka, be closer to the ocean. Things that can't, aren't that salt tolerant, move closer to the Farrington Highway. Because Mr. King is already in the forestry supply type business, he has the market outlets and delivery that he'll be able to plug into and do. We make some considerations for other things such as cultural operations. Because the groundwater here and the soils are very porous in places, excuse me, we don't want plants to develop deep tap roots that make it harder to excavate. So we use root ball containment so that the root ball only has to go down 2 or 3 feet, doesn't jeopardize anything down normally that would be found at 6 or 8 feet. And it also makes excavation easier using a root ball excavator. So those are the types of things that are done to make sure it's done properly. There's proper soil mixtures. There's things like in the tree ball, root containment, bentonite clay mats and capillary matting to spread the moisture around and reduce irrigation needs. Making sure that some of the plants, such as a beach heliotrope, is by the shoreline and is used as shoreline stabilization materials. This is the positioning by the surveyor. The house footprint of the 5,000 square feet that the farmhouse will be in is 110 feet away from the closest intrusion of the shoreline setback. As you can see by the arrow indicator, on the top right corner of that lot is a little jog of the sea level rise. So we'll gladly entertain any questions or discussions you may have, and mahalo nui loa for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howland. Members, any questions? Okay. Councilmember Wire.
Mahalo, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Holland. I just wanted to clarify, and sorry if you stated it already, but I know you sent the July 25th, 2022 notice to the neighborhood board. I just wonder, was there any follow-up or what came of that?
The neighborhood board had listened already to the Alstons, the ones that you approved in December. And when we sent this request to Kathleen, Kathleen said it's almost exactly the same. There's no need, and she ran it by the members of the neighborhood board, and they said we have no need to we have no questions, and we endorse the project.
Appreciate that, and I do know that's common practice for their board, that any member may request an item be placed on agenda. So appreciate all the due diligence you do and just laying out so clearly all the components of a project and just being willing to engage with community. I know, you know, this particular community, of course, is very cognizant of development and impacts on agriculture and also on the shoreline. And so the fact that they didn't have any concerns, I think speaks to just the hard work that you're doing. So appreciate it. Mahalo.
Yes, Councilman, it's the same for you. You've been very helpful as well. We also, Jordan Diddley and the rest of the DPP staff had the patience to understand a different type of process that they normally go through. We feel it's important to make sure that we're not putting forth fake farm designs. You know, we're not trying to put 2 horses on our property and call it a farm. That's not a farm. I grew up in a greenhouse business. I understand what agriculture is, and we try to tie these projects to what's economically viable to the community. And this is one that would help the North Shore.
Okay. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. First off, I very much appreciate the discussion and sharing about the trees and uprooting them when they're semi-mature and talking about the roots and the root ball structure. I love talking about trees like that. And I'm so glad that we're, that only are we doing that on the Mackay portion of the property, but So first off, I just want to say that's awesome to hear. I very much appreciate that. My question is in relation to, since it is in the Mackay area, are there any mitigations from the Mauka side of the property to prevent from any either overflow or flooding or erosion that would come from Mauka side?
Yes, Councilwoman. Fortunately for all these 4 properties that we showed you on the earlier slide, the slope is from Mackay to Maka, so it drains towards the Farrington Highway, and we're making sure that the irrigation systems stay to 75 feet away from the shoreline setback, and so that any irrigation would overflow would run towards the Farrington Highway.
Okay, so it kind of directs, you said directs the overflow to where you actually would want it to go versus overtaking where you don't want it to go, right, on the property.
Another thing we've done is, I don't know if any of you have ever been out to Turtle Bay Resort or walked down to Roy's. The pathway to Roy's has geo-webbing to stabilize the soil, but it's permeable. So all the cart paths that the carts to haul the saplings and material back to for delivery are permeable. And we're not putting any impermeable surfaces on any of the ag land development because groundwater recharge is something we haven't talked about, but Ernie Lau would tell you recharging our groundwater is important.
Okay, thank you. And if you could talk about, because we know that these trees will be uprooted at a particular time, so what it will be rooted in are Jockus sand, is that correct?
Most of the property is listed by NRCS as Jockus sands, but there's a lot of slag and junk material, cobble that was supplanted when back in the 60s, the sand replenishment efforts to take sand from the North Shore out to places like Waikiki Beach and other locations was used, and they did not replace it with sand. So the Jockus sand indication is something that is not as strong as it shows on the soil maps.
So it then wouldn't, and when you said 5 to 6 inches, right, that's how deep the roots would probably be able to grow. You would allow the roots to grow 5 to 6 inches below, right?
5 to 6 feet.
Feet, I mean, sorry, yeah. Feet, I apologize. Okay, and then with that, is there any worry about other infrastructure, I guess, disruption at that level, or is it too Mackay to interrupt any infrastructure?
So nothing's being done out of Mackay except for removal of the ironwoods. As people know, ironwoods are fire prone. They're a fire safety hazard. They also are very acidic. Their needles essentially change the pH of the soil to undesirable for agriculture. So that's the only activity. They'll be replaced with Kamani, which is a good species plant there, and they'll just be left alone to be what they do. The problem with, doesn't matter if it's Jockus sands or gravels or cobbles, it's just extremely permeable. And so that's why the taproot tries to go down to reach the groundwater, which is usually at the 6 or 7 foot level. And we don't want that type of sapling to sell. We want one with a, not a deep taproot, more of an actual root ball. So that's why the containment system is put in place. And so after a tree is harvested or a shrub is harvested, that containment system will be rebuilt and reactivated.
Okay, thank you. First off, I really like that you mentioned, listening to the land, taking the cue from our Council Vice Chair, Kia Aina, about that. But, and I know you noted about traditional farming being difficult, but as I've seen along my Pearl Harbor bike path in Aiea and going up to Salt Lake Boulevard, that a lot of the times, like sometimes we get, we have a lot of groups trying to take care and trying to listen to the land, but sometimes just the salt water levels or salt levels are just sometimes too great or too detrimental too, depending on the crop, on the plants. So I'm looking forward to how you address that, and that's just a comment. Thank you.
We work pretty closely with Department of Agriculture and the HADC. We did over 8,000 acres of Central Oahu's lands sold to the HADC, did the environmental assessment. We work closely with UH on salinity issues and what plants can take salt and what plants can't. For example, rosemary is heavily used in desalinization plants. When you desalinate water, the resulting discharge is saltier, and only rosemary is the only plant that can take the extreme salinity. So the plant crops themselves are designed, rated according to, as I said, listen to the land. The land will tell you what it can grow and what it can't grow.
Understood. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any other questions for Mr. Howland? Yes, please.
Just
Councilmember
comments.
Kiana.
I just wanted to commend you for your due diligence, both culturally and environmentally. You have been before this committee on a multitude of projects, and just keep it up, and I wish the family well for this property.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion for the agent? If not, let's call upon Ms. Dawn Apuna, Director.
Thank you, Chair. We have no objections to the proposed CD1.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions for the Director? If there is no question, let's proceed on with remote testimony. Madam Clerk, are there any remote testifiers online?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. At this point in time, can we move on to the in-person testimony? Are there any testifiers in person? Testimony?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. Members, at this point in time, since there is no one else in the chamber, we are open for discussion. On agenda number 2, resolution 2454. No discussion. Okay. At this point in time, then the chair would like to recommend that resolution 24-54 be amended to the committee draft 1, posted on your agenda. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a committee draft 1. The chair then recommends that resolution 24-54, committee draft 1, be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you very much. Let's move on to agenda. At this point in time, we have a slight intermission for the audience who are here, and I would like to defer to Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, members, for your indulgence. I just want to welcome to our city council chambers and their city and as their city council, the principal from Kaliuka Elementary. We have Principal Derek Santos. If you could please stand up and say hi. And we also have students in Sanchin, as well as Clifford, Kaylee, and Malia. I know that luckily, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam is allowing me to introduce students from his district, but not only are we welcoming them as members of the council, but we want to welcome them to hear what we are discussing that looks forward to their future. So welcome to your city council members, to your city council students from Kaliuka. Mahalo.
Councilmember Cordero, with your indulgence, would you like to have one of the students address the council? Please.
Yes. Principal, if you could please have, if you would like to have one of your students introduce themselves.
Yep.
And share.
Why don't you have them all come up so that their names are recorded in the journal?
I was sharing with them, Chair, that I would join their school for pedestrian safety awareness, sign waving, and they shared that they were born during the time I was still working at the council, more than 10 years ago.
Oops.
Press the on button.
Aloha, I am Clifford.
Last name. Come on, Clifford.
Aloha. I'm Clifford and Charisma.
Okay.
Aloha, I am Isanchin Hannis. Aloha, I am Kaylee Balan.
Aloha, I'm Malia Ahumana.
Okay. Right. Okay, may we proceed on?
Thank you,
members?
Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 3, resolution 24-57. This resolution grants once more a special management area major permit to Carl and Suzanne DeForest, Safe Investment Properties, and SSQ Inc. to allow for the construction of 2 new farm dwellings that are necessary to agricultural operations and to 2 new agricultural structures, and the conversion of an existing farm dwelling to an agricultural structure on an approximately 13-acre shoreline lot that has been submitted to a condominium property regime to create 4 condominium property regime units zone AG2, agricultural 2, which is the agricultural district located at 68-1031 Farrington Highway in Mokuleia, and identified as tax map key 6-8-002:010. And members, we have posted once more to the agenda a proposed Committee Draft 1 version of the resolution. For your information, the summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. Joining us once more in the council chamber is Mr. Mark Howland from Whale Environmental Services, the applicant's agent, who will be providing a brief presentation. And for your information for the public at large, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 138-2024. Mr. Howland.
Good morning again, Council and Chair. My name is Mark Howland, the Chief Biologist of Whale Environmental Services in Kuku. Again, I won't go through the design spiral yet again, but it was approached the same exact way. In this case, it's a little different. I especially wanted to thank Jordan Diddley for his patience. This is a CPR subdivision. Much more difficult to get CPR owners to understand they're not lot owners. They own part of the ownership, and the lot is taken as a whole, even though there are 4 CPR units on the property. So in this case, the original CPR condo master lot is Bobby Ticom, which is to the east side of this property. And there's no activity. He has an existing noni and coconut operation and barn. Was built back in 2014, something like that, a while back. So there's no activity on the 4th CPR unit. The units that are activity is the one farthest to the west, which is the Quinn property. Bobby Quinn is a plastic surgeon with a fun email address at Chopper Bob. He has offices in Seattle, Arizona, and here in Honolulu. He wants to retire here to Hawaii. For now, he just also wants to bookend this property with a non-nani and coconut operation because it'd be low maintenance until he retires here full-time. The second property from the west side is Bill Hansen. Bill owns in Viotech Marine. He's the person who builds the boats for DAR for their patrol ships. So he has a connection to Hawaii. He also, in Molokini, runs the snorkeling tours out to that island on Maui. And currently he imports snack boxes for his tour guests. Central Valley snack boxes. Limp celery sticks, limp carrot sticks, things like that. So these are the lots in question. And the last one is Kyle and Suzanne DeForest, who currently operate Tropical Island Water Company. Those vending machines that you fill up your containers at the local supermarkets. That's Kyle, who is sitting here. That's his company with his wife, Suzanne. They want to develop a diversification of their product line by moving to hydroponics, because some of the species can't take the salt at all, so they'll be inside hydroponic operation, others being in elevated growing beds. And that way they'll be able to supplant their current market line, which is to many, many supermarkets here on Oahu. So as I said, the Quinn Farm conceptual design is basically a barn market as possible along the Farrington Highway, just reserving a footprint outside the shoreline setback for a future farm dwelling if in the event he decides to build and retire here full time. Meanwhile, the crops will basically be noni and coconut because they're low maintenance, slow growing. He won't have to be here as full time to make sure that they're doing. He has a homeless camp situation problem on this property, which the Army has come out several times because the beach next door is cleaned quite often. And so by erecting the coconuts and nonis along the perimeters, it would help to secure the property to some extent. The next property is the Snack Box King. This is Bill Hanson, quite the character. These snack boxes will be pickled ginger root, coconut, pistachios, mangoes, even macadamia nuts, and even popcorn. And believe it or not, there is a popcorn species that grows in Hawaii. Lychee. And again, we're trying to keep the coconuts along the CPR property unit lines so that there's a distinction between the different types of farms. Nahana Y Farms of the forest. Again, he has his existing operation along the Farrington Highway that will be decommissioned and be purely a work building and a house or greenhouse where the hydroponics would be. Next to that would be the outdoor fruit growing beds, which would be mainly melons. The lawns would be chamomile that can be sold as herbal tea instead of grass. And also chamomile can take salinity a lot better than grass can. The Kamani trees would be extracted for their fruit. And there's a rosemary bed also proposed over near the shoreline and a kukui nut grove for wax to make candles to sell in outlets that the forest has already used. Again, has the costs are over $500,000, so SMA major. Agencies were notified, abutters were notified. We went to the neighborhood board and had the hearing with them, and a few questions, mainly about the homeless more than anything else, were asked of us. Abutters were notified with no responses, but as we said, the abutters are the other proponents. So we told them, if you complain about your neighbor's property, he's going to complain about yours. So, it's prepared under Chapter 343. Here's the locus of the property. This one's not across from Dillingham Ranch, it's across from Dillingham Airfield. This is a typical photo of the property. When particularly the Hansons, DeForest, and Quinn bought their CPR units, this was basically a junkyard. There was hundreds of abandoned cars, debris, waste. They've cleaned the property up, which is why you see large open areas, both barren and grassed, again, with the perimeter of ironwood. This is something that they should be applauded for cleaning up what could have turned into a hazardous waste mess. Again, we applied the siting parameters to the property, taking into account the zoning, the flood zone. It's an unstudied flood zone, so there's no flood consideration, but again, we've advised them to make sure any structures, support equipment, anything mitigates any potential flood damage. The sea rise level map is also shown, and I'll get to that in a second, but again, we're here to the land use being zoned Ag 2. The driving force is agriculture. So we're trying to make sure that the agriculture viability is the primary use of the land. The concept of these agricultural operations is diversity. It's well known by anyone who's ever been in the farming business. If you're a single crop grower and you have crop failure, you've lost your business. The more diverse you are, the better chance you have to stay in business. I had a friend who was an oyster farmer on the East Coast. His oyster racks were in the Portsmouth Harbor Bay. The ice came in, broke the netting loose, and $1 million of oysters are floating out somewhere in the Atlantic. So he lost his one single crop. And it can be a disaster. My father used to grow poinsettias. If someone turned a light on at a certain time of night, it destroys the bloom of a poinsettia plant. Again, the objectives were to keep anything that does like salt as close to the shoreline side, outside the setback as possible, outside of removing the ironwoods. The chamomile is something that, beyond the scent and the aesthetic values, they also are a herbal crop that can be sold to health outlets and then resown. Again, things are thought about the control of the water supply, the salinity, the nutrient levels, everything's usually safely and continually monitored. The one nice thing about hydroponics is you can control the water supply, control the nutrient levels, control its operation much easier. Again, we're using the same root ball containment system that was previously presented. The same factors, again, plants that have agricultural values such as chamomile. Most of Europe has chamomile lawns, not grass lawns. It's something we had ourselves. And it's something you guys might want to consider. It's a much nicer lawn cover. This is the overlay of the survey plan with the various shoreline and erosion setback lines. Everything's outside the 75-foot setback line. Even though a more recent shoreline survey done, they could go back to the 60, but they're content being at 75 feet. Everything's, as much as possible, is kept outside. That dotted blue line is an overlay of the sea level 3.2 rise, and outside of eventually Bob Quinn on Unit 1, everything is tried to contain as much as possible outside that sea level rise. Bobby Titcom and the unit to the east was built years ago, and about 8 foot of the corner of his house is in it. But obviously, I don't think we're going to make a move. An existing house that's been there for years. So again, we'll answer any questions you have on the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howland. I'll first defer to the council member. Wire, any questions on behalf of the residents of the North Shore?
No questions. Appreciate the thoroughness, the engagement of the community. And as always, I think the presentation covered all angles, so appreciate that. Support the project.
Councilmember Kihaina, please.
How large is the mango grove going to be? Couple of acres?
No, the property, each CPR unit, the mangoes is on the 5-acre piece.
That's still a lot. And what, is that for themselves or to go to market?
No, that's for the snack boxes.
For the snack boxes?
Yes.
Okay. I may have mentioned before my family's a plant family. So they probably have done their research on the variety of mangoes that's conducive for selling or to produce. But for them, tell them Councilmember Kia Aina highly recommends that they plant a keat mango, K-E-I-T-T. It's one of the best. On average, it's 1 pound, can go up to 5 pounds. You have to be very patient. It takes a long time to grow, but the benefits, you can tell them after they pick their first fruit that I said, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the applicant's agent? If not, okay, just to put a plug in, I always like Hayden mango. I also like Peewee mango, common mango, all types of mango. Huh? Oh, Esther, Mapalehu? Is that another?
All of them are good, but I got to tell you, and I'm saying this because we just got my friend in Kailua one at 6 feet from Kunia. It bore fruit within a year. And their family never tasted it before, a local Hawaiian family, and they're sold. So it's, Kona used to have the world record for the largest mango. It was a keat mango, and then it was overtaken by a shibata from, I believe, Aiea. But that was a couple of years ago. So it takes a long time to grow because it grows large, yeah, but it's delicious. But it's not for market because it's they're very temperamental.
Okay. Members, any other questions for the agent at this point in time? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Howland. At this point in time, we'll call upon the Director of Department of Planning and Permitting, Director Apuna.
Thank you, Chair. We have no objections to the proposed CD1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for the Director? If not, may we proceed on to remote testimony. Madam Clerk, are there any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Are there in-person testimony?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. Members, we are in discussion at this point in time. Okay, If there is no further discussion, the chair would like to recommend that Resolution 24-57 be amended to the committee draft 1 posted on the agenda. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been adopted to a committee draft 1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 24-57, committee draft 1, be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you very much once more, Mr. Howland. Let's move on to agenda number 4, Resolution 24-58. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Ohana Makai LLC to allow for the construction of 2 new single-family detached dwellings, each with a pavilion structure, a swimming pool and spa, with an adjacent accessory equipment structure, and a detached 4-car garage and storage structure with a rooftop solar array on an approximately 37,180 square foot shoreline lot zone R10. Once more, R10 residential district, located at 126 South Kalaheo Avenue in Kailua, and as identified as tax map key 4-3-012:030. Members, we have distributed a hand-carried proposed CD1 version of the resolution. For your information, the hand-carry CD1 makes the following amendments. The proposed committee draft 1 makes the following amendments. A, in the first whereas clause, we clarify that the SMA major permit is for the construction of 2 new single-family detached dwellings, each with a pavilion structure, a swimming pool and spa with an adjacent accessory equipment structure, and a detached 4-car garage and storage structure with a rooftop. B, in the bid resolve clause for condition G, in condition G, relating to archaeological, historic, and cultural resources that may be present on the project site, that A, we add a new condition G2 to provide that the project's archaeological monitoring plan must include 1, the on-site presence of a licensed archaeologist, consultation as required by state law if iwi kapuna are discovered. 2, consideration of a project redesign or reallocation to allow any discovered iwi kupuna to be buried in place. 3, establishment of a temporary curation unit on the project site if iwi kupuna are disinterred. 4, identification of potential reinterment sites on the project site if burial in place is not recommended and on-site reinterment is recommended. And 5, consultation with the licensed archaeologist to determine whether excavation work should be conducted with a specially fitted flat blade. Sub B amends the condition G3 to clarify that the applicant shall consult with SHPD, the State Historic Preservation Division, regarding mitigation protocols and shall implement all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by SHPD for all historic properties and cultural resources, including iwi kupuna discovered on the project site. For the general public, SHPD is the State Historic Preservation Division, the state. Moving on, C, we amend the last sentence of condition G to clarify that the requirements enumerated in the condition and all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by SHPD must be clearly stated under environmental notes on all project all project construction permit plans and building permit plans. Once more, to correct my statement, is for all project construction permit plans and building permit plans. 2, in condition H.8 relating to the minimization or minimizing impacts to endangered, protected, or threatened avian fauna that may frequent or traverse the vicinity of the project site, clarifies that pre-construction nesting surveys are required prior to and during all project construction activities scheduled between March through December as further specified in the condition, rather than just construction activities scheduled to begin between March through December. B, we provide that the qualified biologist must be familiar with the biology of the Manuoku white tern, in addition to the wedge-tail, shearwaters, and Hawaiian seabirds. C, we clarify that a minimum of 3 days prior to the initiation of any clearing, including, once more, including tree trimming or removal, grubbing, grading, excavation, or trenching activities, the qualified biologist must conduct pre-construction surveys for the presence of the Hawaiian seabird and migratory bird nests and eggs or fledglings. D, provides that if no nests, eggs, or fledglings are discovered, work may proceed. E, provide that if any nests, once more, eggs, or fledglings are discovered, written evidence of the survey must be submitted to the Department of Planning and Permitting, the Land Use Permits Division, and F, clarifies that no pre-construction nesting surveys are required for construction activities occurring in January or February. 3, in condition I, we clarify that a material analysis is required prior to the importation of any fill material, rather than only for the importation of soil material. And 4, in condition J3, we clarify that any extension proposal will be deemed to be denied if the council fails to take final action within the first to occur of 60 days after receipt of the Department of Planning and Permitting Director's Report, or 2, the applicant's then existing deadline for obtaining a construction permit or building permit, rather than a development permit. And 5, in condition K, relating to compliance with other city ordinance and other governmental requirements that are subject to review and approval separate from the SMA's Shoreline Management Act major permit, adds that the project's building permit application must address the lack of kitchen in dwelling 2, currently a multifamily dwelling with 3 lodging units, exceeding the maximum number of bathrooms permitted on a zoning lot, and parking design provisions that require all vehicles to enter and exit the street in a forward-facing manner. And C, making miscellaneous, technical, and non-substantive amendments. So those are the amendments that are being proposed at this point in time to this particular measure. So at this point in time, we're pleased to have in the council chamber Mr. Todd Hassler and Muriel Turin from Peter Vincent Architects, the applicant's agent, who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 145 of 2024. Okay, go right ahead. Todd.
Good morning, Chair and Council. My name is Todd Hassler, partner and architect with Peter Vincent Architects, acting as owner's agent for the project, requesting an SMA major permit. The property is located at 126 South Kalaheo Avenue. This is a photo of Kailua Beach from the property. Next slide. The project is it's a fairly large lot, and it stretches from South Kalaheo all the way to Kailua Beach. Next slide. The project is in the special management area. It's entirely in the flood zone X area, and it is completely outside of the special flood hazard area. And it is not impacted by the 3.2 feet of sea level rise projected by the sea level rise exposure area. Next slide. Oh, there's some issues with this slide. This was, it is part of the original documents, but it's an existing survey of the property. It's currently a vacant lot. There was a single-family home and a detached garage, which was demolished in 2019 and has been vacant since then. The property is just under 500 feet by 75 feet. It's just over 37,000 square feet with a gentle slope from the Malka to the Mackay side. And there are typical Kailua dunes on the Mackay side. Next slide. This is a little bit of our vision board, some of the inspiration for the project. Again, an aerial image of the property looking down at Kailua Beach. Some of the materials and inspirational images. The upper right is a traditional canoe holly, which served as inspiration for some of the gathering spaces in the 2 dwelling units. Next slide. So this is a conceptual plan of the project showing the detached 4-car garage on the Malka side right off of South Kalaheo. Dwelling 2, which is a single-family home in the center of the property, and then dwelling 1, which is the main dwelling on the Mackay side. The property is kind of broken down into multiple zones based on the location of the infrastructure as well as the landscaping. The entry is where the garage and the driveway are. You're welcome to the property with these curved site walls, which are inspired by Hawaiian fishhooks, which you'll see throughout the project. And then between the garage, which has a flat roof for a photovoltaic array on the roof, between the garage and dwelling 2, there's a garden. The clients are very passionate about growing their own fruits and vegetables on the property for their own consumption. So between the garage and dwelling 2 is that little garden area. Then there's a central spine that goes through the property, which serves as the main corridor connecting all the infrastructures. And dwelling 2 has, it's a 2-story dwelling on the Waimanalo side. On the Kaneohe side is an open-air pavilion, which is inspired by that traditional canoe hale. And then between the dwelling units is a great lawn with shaded trees. All the plantings are selected to be salt tolerant. And you'll start to enter the grill and pool area and eventually into the main dwelling space, which also has a 2-story element on the Waimanalo side and an enclosed great room space on the Kaneohe side, again inspired by the traditional canoe hales. And then eventually to the Mackay lawn, which again has salt-tolerant coverings and plantings. Next slide. So these are some of the aerials. The left side is looking Malka to Mackay. You can see the 1-story garage in the foreground, and the 2-story structures, again, on the right side or the Waimanalo side, and then the lower canoe hale structures on the Kaneohe side with the great lawn in between. The right side is the opposite view, looking from Mackay to Malka. The buildings are elevated from existing grade. The intent is to limit disturbance to the soil. So we've actually raised the buildings about 24 inches. So excavation is limited to the perimeter of the homes and structures. And then the fill from that excavation would be used around the perimeter. Again, the idea is to minimize importing soil. Next slide. And this is just a view of the entry. Again, we have these gentle curved site walls. It's a very modest impact on South Kalaheo. You see just the roof of the flat roof garage on the right-hand side. And next slide. And then this is a view from Kailua Beach. Those are the existing dunes, which are, of course, intended to remain. On the right-hand side, you can see the two-story structure, and on the right, you could just see the peak of the great room space inspired by the traditional canoe hale. And then we have the existing homes on both sides of the property. Next slide. So these are some of the materials that we're using throughout the property. They're all natural materials, ranging from board form concrete and fossil stone site walls, as well as shell stone flooring, reclaimed wood beams and soffits, and corrugated copper roof. Next slide. These are just some of the area calculations for the project. Overall, the intent is to be well below the LUO development standards. The total floor area is just over 12,000 square feet, where the allowable floor area is over double that. So we're staying well below that. Next slide. And then this is just kind of an outline of the project. Overall, in addition to the floor area ratio, the building coverage, pervious surfaces, bathroom counts, wet bars, laundry, the intent is to comply fully with all LUO regulations, including the height limits on the property. An AIS, an archaeological inventory survey, has been completed and has been submitted to SHPE by our archaeological consultant. They're also aware of all the conditions, the proposed conditions of the resolution. They've been communicated, and we fully plan to enforce all of the conditions. We've also retained a biologist for the project, again, as the conditions state. And they were actually at the property as early as last week to monitor the site. So overall, we have reviewed the conditions of the resolution and have no exceptions. So thank you for your time, and I'm open for any questions or comments.
Okay, members, any questions? I'll defer to the council member from the area, Council Member Kiaina.
Thank you. First of all, Chair, I wanted to thank you for your proposed CD that includes additional conditions for this SMA. As the staff submittal states, this property is located near the Kailua berm, which is known to contain a lot of EV, and that the entire berm area is considered an area of high probability of encountering EV. I did want to ask the applicant whether they have reached out to lineal descendants in the area or the Office of Hawaiian Affairs.
I would have to confirm with our archaeological consultant, but the intent is to definitely communicate that with.
Yes, and because I know you guys are based in Kailua, yeah?
Yeah.
So you know the De Silvas, and so
sure.
they could, I just want to make sure that you have contact. And can I ask what the status of the archaeological monitoring plan is?
Yes, so there is the intent to produce a monitoring plan in collaboration with the state for sure. With the, the original AIS did not encounter any EV kupuna, but as you said, that there's, it's very common, and so there we do understand the conditions of the resolution to put together a monitoring plan in the event that they're discovered during excavation. So we do intend to.
Okay, thank you. I've previously shared my concerns with SMA projects that propose in-ground swimming pools in areas where EV kupuna could be located, and reiterate those concerns today, especially after it's been disclosed that EV kupuna have already been found in the general vicinity. If EV kupuna are discovered during excavation for the swimming pool, is your team prepared to look at alternatives to allow for burial in place, including moving the pool to a different location?
Yes. And to confirm and clarify, the pool, is raised along with the rest of the structure. The expectation is to, again, try to minimize excavation, but
Okay.
in the event that they are discovered, we're open to
Okay,
reviewing
good to hear.
alternates.
So the pool is being proposed is going to be, and you're not going to go too far down. It's going to be more
Correct.
above ground?
Yes, we're coming up about 2 feet with the entire project, which includes the pool.
The pool.
And the expectation is to minimize site disturbance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any further questions for Mr. Hassler, the agent's applicant? Okay, Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. I was just wondering about the parking requirement of how do you allow vehicles to enter and exit in a forward-facing manner? How do you require and determine that through design?
Yeah, so we have been, we've been recently becoming very good at providing maneuvering clearance diagrams on our plans, which shows how each individual vehicle are able to maneuver to pull out in a forward manner.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Has your question been answered? Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Hassler? If not, thank you very much for your very thorough presentation. May we proceed on to the Director of Planning and Permitting, Director Apuno. Okay, Liz, please.
Good morning, committee chair and members. Director Apuna needed to step out for a moment, so I'm here. We support the proposed CD1 for this project.
State your name.
Oh, sorry. I'm Elizabeth Krieger. I'm the Land Use Permits Division Chief for the Department of Planning and Permitting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. Ms. Kruger, I was wondering if DPP, are you suggesting and supporting the requirement for the forward-facing vehicles? And I was wondering if there was any traffic determinations or traffic mitigations from the main street that it pulls out onto, and if that's the reason for that?
That's a land use ordinance requirement that when more than I believe it's 4 or 5 vehicles are parking in a location, that they need to be able to show that they're pulling out in a forward-facing manner. So the reason that we drew attention to it was because we have to make the finding that the project is consistent with zoning.
Right.
So we wanted to highlight that that might be one spot where they will have to show during building permit that they can meet that code requirement.
Okay, understood. Wow, these drawings for the garage really look like just the house itself. This is mind-boggling for me. I'm not used to this type of a home. Okay, but thank you.
Okay, if there's any further discussion for the department? Thank you very much, Liz. Okay, Madam Clerk, we'll proceed on with remote testimony. Do we have any remote testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have Angela Young.
Okay, Miss Angela Young. Okay, unmute yourself, Young. Unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right. Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES. And so with the archaeological survey, it's very considerate in this process. So I'm in support of this development. State and federal regulations require consultation and review for projects impacting historic properties, specifically projects taking place on federal or state lands, or projects requiring permits from federal or state offices. And so a violation occurs in the archaeological survey when an survey is not performed, or when it doesn't comply with mitigation plans, or when a preservation or burial preserve is discovered and the developer carries out development plans on the preservation or burial site without prior authorization, or when a developer fails to submit a report as required by Chapter 6E relating to SHIP D rules. So the process that was heard today, I think, is very considerate. of like the Hawaiian culture and this shifty archaeological survey policy. So I think that developer is very good. And also, with the mitigation of seabirds, building and development should not negatively affect life. Negative elements such as ocean temperatures and invasive species all threaten Hawaii's birds, and
Okay,
birds
Ms.
don't get to
Young.
live at a farm.
Ms. Young,
So there's no sanctuary.
your time has expired.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your
Okay.
thorough testimony and strong support of the agent.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, are there any further remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, do we have in-person testimony?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Okay. Members, at this point in time, we are in discussion in regards to Resolution 24-58. If there is no discussion, the chair would like to recommend that Resolution 24-58 be amended to the hand-carried Committee Draft 1. I want to thank Council Member Kiana for her tremendous input in this particular area of SHIFTI. Are there any discussions, objections, or reservations? Excuse me, my staff wants me to recognize the amendment, which is OCS 2024-0331/4/2-2024 at 2:24 p.m. So is there any discussion, objections, or reservations? We have 3 votes, sorry, now. Okay. So hearing none, excuse me, let's start off again. Any discussion, objections, or reservations to the hand-carried CD1? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a Committee Draft 1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 24-58, Committee Draft 1, be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda number 5, Resolution 24-71. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Dream Home Trust, LLC, to allow for the construction of a new 2-story single-family detached dwelling, a 2-car garage, a concrete driveway with 7 additional parking spaces, new landscaping, and a sprinkler system, and a lanai area with a swimming pool, jacuzzi, outdoor kitchen, and barbecue on an approximately 26,109 square foot shoreline lot, zoned R10 in the residential district, located at 47-083 Kamehameha Highway in Kahului, and identified as tax map key 4-7-019:082. Members, at this point in time, we also have I'd like to distribute another hand-carried proposed Committee Draft 1 version of the resolution of OCS 2024-033/4/2-2024 at 2:23 p.m. 2:31 p.m. For your information, the amendments are as follows. I'll read this to the general public at large also. The proposed Committee Draft 1 makes the following amendments. We amend the resolution title to read as follows: granting a special management area major permit to allow the construction of a new single-family dwelling, garage, driveway, landscaping, and sprinkler system, and lanai area with swimming pool in Kahului, Oahu. In the first whereas clause, we correct the name of the applicant and clarifies that the SMA major permit is for the construction of a new 2-story single-family detached dwelling, a 2-car garage, a concrete driveway with 7 additional parking spaces, new landscaping and a sprinkler system, and a lanai area with a swimming pool, jacuzzi, outdoor kitchen, and barbecue. C, in the bid resolve clause 1, in condition B, we clarify that the certified shoreline survey is dated February 13th, 2024. 2, in condition F, relating to archaeological, historical, and cultural resources that may be present on the project site A, we amend the conditions of F2 to provide that prior to the issuance of any construction permit or building permit for the project, the applicant shall submit to the Department of Planning and Permitting a copy of an archaeological inventory survey, known as AIS, that includes a strategy for subsurface testing conducted by a SHPD-approved archaeologist and that has been reviewed and approved by SHPD. The AIS, or the Archaeological Inventory Survey, must identify and document any archaeological, historic properties, and cultural resources on the project site, assess their significance, and determine the potential impacts of the project on the historic properties and cultural resources. B, we also amend condition F3 to add that the archaeological monitoring plan must include the on-site presence of a SHPD-approved archaeologist during excavation work to ensure that any discoveries of Iwi Kupuna or other historic resources are appropriately handled. C, we amend condition F4 to clarify that the applicant shall consult with SHPD regarding mitigation protocols and shall implement all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by SHPD for all historic properties and cultural resources, including Iwi Kupuna, discovered on the project site. D, we amend the last sentence in condition F to clarify that the requirements enumerated in the condition and all mitigation protocols approved or otherwise required by SHPD must be clearly stated under the environmental notes on all project construction permit plans and building permit plans. 3, in condition H1, it would clarify that the applicant proposes to import approximately 600 cubic yards of structural fill material consisting of recycled non-porous concrete to stabilize the project's foundations. 4, we add a new condition I to require that the project's building permit application include a landscape plan that shows the use of native plant species appropriate for the area. B, the applicant consult with the Plant Pono website and the Oahu Invasive Species Committee website to determine the potential invasiveness of plants proposed for use within the project site. C, these conditions be clearly stated under environmental notes on all project construction permits, plans, and building permit plans. Re-alphabetize subsequent conditions. 5, we re-alphabetize condition J3 that clarifies that any extension proposal will be deemed to be denied if the council fails to take final action within the first to occur. 1, the 60 days after receipt of the DPP's director's report, or 2, the applicant's then existing deadline for obtaining a construction permit or a building permit rather than a development plan. 6, in re-alphabetized condition K, relating to compliance with other city ordinances and other governmental requirements that are subject to review and approval separate from the SMA major permit, adds that the project's building permit application must address the lodging unit located across from the breezeway that is not connected to the main dwelling unit and therefore not permitted in the R10 residential zoning district. And D, once more, we make miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. So joining us now in the council chamber is Mr. Jim Hayes from Planning Solutions, Inc., the applicant's agent, who will be providing a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 146 of 2024. Mr. Hayes, please.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. My name is Jim Hayes with Planning Solutions, agent for the applicant. The project site address here, 47-83 Kamehameha Highway. This is in Kahaluu, sort of north of Haia State Park, on the way to further north. So A quick review of the SMA permit process. We've been working on this project for quite some time, dating back to 2022. And we sent scoping letters to area agencies and neighbors. And then we sent letters to Native Hawaiian organizations seeking their input. We met with the neighborhood board in July of 2023, and we had follow-up email discussions and conversations with members of the neighborhood board to address their questions and concerns. The application was submitted, and then in December, there was the SMA hearing, and now today, we are having this discussion today. This is an aerial photograph of the site showing that the site is vacant. It also has existing residential homes on all sides except for the Kaneohe Bay side. So it's an established residential community, zoned R10. The project site is roughly 25,803 square feet. This is a photograph taken from the project site towards Kaneohe Bay. And as you can see, the site is vacant. There was previously a residence on the site, and you can see sort of a remnant of the foundation there on the site. It's currently maintained as landscaped area and is at an elevation of roughly 30 feet above sea level. So from the wall there on the Mackay side of the property, roughly 30 feet, and then behind the camera on the highway side, elevation of roughly 40 feet. So it's well elevated above Kaneohe Bay. This is an overview of the project plan and shows that the development is in that more Mauka area of the project site. It is outside of the sea level rise exposure area, which is shown in the vertical gray hatching. It is also outside of the shoreline setback area, which is shown in the bluish slash hatching, and is well outside of the yard area, as shown in the green backslash hatching. So the development, the entire development, is at least 45 feet from the shoreline, and the house will be roughly 65 feet from the shoreline. Because this project site is in Kaneohe Bay, there is no shoreline erosion modeled to occur. This is a rendering of the proposed development showing a two-level structure with a swimming pool. This is looking from the Mackay side towards the highway. This is a section view of the residence with the highway on the left and Kaneohe Bay on the right, illustrating that the proposal complies with the land use ordinance height requirements. And this is a quick review of the development's compliance with the land use ordinance standards, including building area, floor area ratio, impervious surface, height, and yards. And these numbers have been updated to address the requests in the resolution conditions. And I'll point out that the proposal is consistent with the neighborhood in general. The typical floor area ratio of the neighborhood there is 0.32, and the proposal has a floor area ratio of 0.34. So that's the extent of our presentation at this time. Available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
I do have one question
Yes,
for the
please.
council. We hadn't had an opportunity to review I guess the hand-carried resolution. And at this project site, we've been working with an archaeologist and consulting with the Historic State Preservation Division. And they've requested an AIS, but the AIS they've requested did not include subsurface investigation. This is not a sandy site, it's a clay area. And we've been consulting with the SHPD, and we intend to meet their requirements, but it is unlikely that they will require subsurface testing, and it's also unlikely they will require archaeological monitoring based on the development as proposed.
Okay. Mr. Hayes, are you requesting to the council zoning committee just an extension until all of this is resolved? Would that be possible? An extension of your application for another month to get everything done?
No, I'm suggesting that the wording of the resolution perhaps be revised, that it meets the requirements of the State Historic Preservation Division requests.
Okay, your point is very much well taken. Okay, yep, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And just reviewing your proposed amendments today, I do appreciate the due diligence of your staff. Mahalo for the presentation. Just wanted to kind of walk through, could you lay out again the status of the AIS and how it's proceeding and when we anticipate it being completed?
So we've been in conversations with the Historic Preservation Division. The reason they requested an AIS was apparently solely due to a small, roughly 2-foot circle of stones that appears on the ground surface. And it's probably a place where the former residents had a hot water heater tank or something to that effect. But because the residence was torn down some time ago, it's not entirely clear. And just due to that small circle of stones is the request for the AIS. And so we intend to work with the archaeologist to further investigate that stone circle and provide a report to the State Historic Preservation Division within a month or two.
Appreciate that. Is that DPP's understanding as well, that the AIS is requested because of a small circle of stones that were most likely the result of a water heater?
Yes, yes,
Sorry, that was yes. Okay.
yes.
Okay. How did the February meeting go with the neighborhood board?
I believe the meeting, let's see, when was the meeting?
I'm just basing it off of the agenda.
Oh, okay, yeah, the meeting was in July. We've had,
I believe the project was on the agenda in February.
at the neighborhood board? Not aware of that.
Okay.
We gave a presentation to the neighborhood board in July of 2023. We had a discussion with the neighborhood board. Subsequent to that, provided them the list of Native Hawaiian organizations that we reached out to. And then subsequent to that, the project proponent met with certain members of the neighborhood board and the community regarding concerns related to historic properties and addressed their concerns.
Okay. Okay, because my understanding is, I don't think I made that meeting. I know our staff was probably there, but I had heard from the community that there's going to be a meeting in February, and I believe it was on the agenda. Don't think that a presentation was made, but I believe Ms. Swarsinger, apologies to her, I know she's not here today for mispronunciation, but I think she did appear last month at the neighborhood board. Is that your understanding?
My understanding is that it was not a neighborhood board meeting. It was just a small group meeting among members of the community. It did include people that sit on the neighborhood board, but it was not a neighborhood board meeting.
Okay. So the only presentation that you did at the neighborhood board was in July 2023?
Correct.
Okay. Appreciate that. Have you anticipated returning to provide the findings of DPP and the recommendation of DPP?
We had not anticipated doing that, no. Members of the neighborhood are welcome to participate in this process as they see fit.
Okay, so why didn't you consider that as an option?
My understanding after Ms. Scherzinger met with this meeting in February that the concerns had been addressed, and we have not been approached by the neighborhood board subsequent to that time.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask DPP a couple questions?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I'll
call
defer
her.
to Chair, so we'll have questions for DPP after.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, Councilmember Kiaina.
I wanted to clarify what you were saying about subsurface testing. Are you saying that you don't believe it's necessary?
I'm not, I have a report from our archaeologist. I'm not an archaeologist, I'm a geologist.
Okay, but
and a
you were
planner.
expressing concern over the requirement of the RCD, and I guess I just want to say that SHPT concurred with the literature and field review inspection that an archaeological inventory survey with subsurface testing for the entirety of the subject property should be prepared and submitted.
And we have subsequently been in discussions with State Historic Preservation Division. And they've, like we mentioned earlier, they were calling out specifically that circle of stones, and we intend to investigate that circle of stones.
Finish?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, for them? No, I'm sorry. Can I ask about the swimming pool? So similar to what I asked for the previous SMA project, will this swimming pool be above or below ground?
It's, let me get to the, this is a cross-section view of the project development as proposed. Swimming pool on the right side. The slope of the site is towards the Kaneohe Bay. So the swimming pool is on the downslope side. So it's in that area.
No, I'm not looking at it. Can you just can you just tell me, is it above ground or
I think
below
it's
ground?
similar to the previous proposal where there's probably a small amount of excavation.
Okay, so however, if iwi kupuna are discovered during the process, is your team prepared to look at alternatives to allow for burial in place, including moving the pool to a different location? That's my question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions for the applicant, agent? If not, let's proceed on, okay? At this point in time, we'll call the Department of Planning and Permitting Director Apuna.
Thank you, Chair. We don't have any specific concerns with the proposed CD, but I do have Christy, the planner that worked on it, who can provide more details or explanation.
Please come on up, Christy, to highlight your summary of the project.
Good morning. My name is Christy Keller. I'm the planner who worked on this project. I'm available for questions.
Any questions for her? No questions?
Yeah,
okay,
some
go
questions.
Ahead. Councilmember Wire.
Mahalo, Chair. And so, Ms. Keller, or no?
Yep, Keller, yep.
Okay, appreciate the work and you being here. I was just curious, and this might be more of a question for Director, if DPP has considered going to the neighborhood board or would be open to going to the neighborhood board if they would entertain it to outline its analysis and findings. And the only reason I ask is because I don't think it's too often, and maybe you can shed light, either of you, that a neighborhood board, I think it was 12-0, that voted in opposition to this particular project. And typically on neighborhood boards, I mean, as we saw in some of the SMAs we had today, you know, all the rural neighborhood boards completely okayed all the SMA projects. And so I'm just wondering where the disconnect was and if there's maybe a potential to lay out the analysis as it relates to the concerns that have been raised, particularly in relation to the cultural resources?
I will defer to Dawn as far as the reaching out to or pretending with neighborhood board, but as far as like outreach and discussions, I was invited by the chair of the neighborhood board along with Councilmember Kia Aina and I believe also your staff, some of which attended to go and take a boat ride and look at this property and have discussions. During that time, I asked them to specify the concerns and what they would like, what resolution they would like to see. What I was told is that they'd like to make sure that the sufficient studies were done to make sure that potential hail and also Ahupua'a, line were appropriately, I guess, investigated to find out if they were there and what information was available. In review of all of the documentation we received from the applicant, specifically from their existing literature review and the fact that SHPD is requiring an archaeological impact survey in order to get more information. We looked at the fact that this HAO does not appear to be on this particular site the way it's described on a steep slope and other factors in various maps, I believe from 1939 and 1978. So we basically looked at every aspect of the cultural. We also looked at the fact that the lineal descendant that was interviewed that also spoke at our SMA public hearing basically said that he'd accurately been reflected in the applicant's submittal. So I guess from our perspective, we were saying, have the questions, have they been investigated? And that's what we were looking at.
Okay. And do you have a first mahalo for that? I think the seriousness that you approach your job with and the empathy and understanding of engaging community and being open about government processes is very well taken, regardless of what the recommendation is, because I think the fact that you went out on the boat and spent that time shows that, the city does care what the community thinks. And so appreciate that. And then all the work that went into it on your part, on DPP's part. My question is, do you have thoughts on the CD that zoning chair has proposed in light of the applicant's concerns about the AIS requirement, or I guess the steps that would be required?
I guess in general, on this project and others, my thought would be that SHPD's the expert. And so if, whatever they're saying, we're going to defer to. We don't want to overstep our bounds. We don't want to say something that they're going to disagree with and have a conflict. Beyond that, I don't have a particular personal thought on it. If SHPD says to do it a certain way, then we're going to say, okay, do it that way. It's kind of outside of the realm of our regulatory authority. It's a state deal.
Okay, mahalo. I did have questions for the applicant also, but I'll defer to Chair on when to ask those.
Any further questions for the department? If not, okay. Back to the applicant, Mr. Hayes.
Yeah, I just, do we do any engagement with the immediate neighbors? I know it sounds like the conversation with the neighborhood board wasn't as productive as maybe we would have liked. And so I'm just curious if the immediately surrounding households, have been engaged. Because of course it be more hopeful if we could say like, oh, there's some folks on the neighborhood board that don't like, 12 folks on the neighborhood board that don't like it. But of course, if the neighbors are, oh no, we're excited to have, this new neighbor. Do you have anything you can allay some of the community concerns with?
Well, we did at the neighborhood board meeting in July, the immediate neighbor was in attendance, and we discussed the project with them. They raised a couple of concerns that perhaps the garage of the proposed development was too close to their house, and they had some concerns about trees overhanging onto their property. But as I pointed out in our presentation, the proposed development is well outside of the yard area, and the garage is facing the highway. So I think they're in good standing there. The neighboring people understand that. There might be some concern about the trees that are existing. They're large canopy monkey pod trees currently in that area, and they could be trimmed to address the neighborhood's concerns.
Okay, and then last question, Chair. Could you maybe just summarize again, I might have missed earlier, but in your own words or thoughts, what the other concerns that were kind of laid out through the conversation with the community, either in the community or at the neighborhood board?
Yeah, the primary concern, and Ms. Keller just mentioned, was an issue that people felt that the site was a special place because it was near or on the Nahupu'a boundary, and that there had previously been a heiau documented in that area. That documentation dated back to 1933, and in 1933, the documentation said that there was barely anything visible at that time. Subsequent to that, the neighborhood was developed in that area, and we, the archaeologist and myself and others, have found no evidence of the heiau on this site or in the neighborhood, but it probably was not, based on the aerial photographs and maps, that heiau probably was not located previously on the project site. It may have been further Mauka or in some other part of the neighborhood. But that association of the project site with those historic resources, and the fact that the project site had been vacant for a substantial period of time, were coming together to generate the opposition at the neighborhood board. And so we addressed the concerns with reaching out to Native Hawaiian organizations and interviewing lineal descendant to further evaluate the potential historic significance of the property. And our client, who is one of our few Native Hawaiian clients, is very concerned about those issues and reached out to the community and aims to be supportive of the Native Hawaiian community and protective of the resources.
Of course, and I don't doubt that. And of course, I know she's very busy, so she, has to rely on you and other folks to kind of to carry out those activities. So that's why I was just curious, because I know you've been on the ground, and so I think it's helpful to kind of know the perspective and just what's been said and been walked through. So appreciate that, and thanks for all the work you've been doing. I do have discussion, Chair, but no further questions. So
Okay, any further questions for the members? If not, let's proceed on. Okay? So for the department, Director Apuna, the position of the department for the committee draft 1.
No opposition.
No opposition. Okay, thank you. Any questions for the director? If there is none, okay, let's proceed on. Madam Clerk, are there any remote testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have one standing by.
Okay, let's start off with Ms. Jessie Makanai.
Aloha mai kako, o Jessie Makaina I ko uinoa no Kahalu'u mai au. I was the former Kahalu'u Neighborhood Board Chair. Unfortunately, I need to step down to care for my son's medical needs at this time. I'll be testifying today as a community member and a lineal descendant of Kahalu'u. I've submitted written testimony, and I will stand on my written testimony. And before I go into my prepared little speech here, I do want to address a couple of things that were noted. We do appreciate the council's CD1. I would like to ask that in the landscape plan that testing for LFA be completed, as we are concerned about that here in our rural district. I also would like to address the comment by Mr. Hayes that no erosion is modeled to occur in that area that the SMA has proposed. However, just a few houses up, there has been a landslide within recent months. As reflected in the July 12th, 2023 Kahaluu Neighborhood Board meeting, many concerns over this SMA permit application have been raised by the surrounding community. Some are cultural, some environmental, and some are financial. Many of our community members are not well adept to the processes that these applications undergo, and I want it noted that the overall consensus of the existing community at that meeting was in opposition to the approval of SMA 2023/SMA-91. I believe that's time. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Makanai? Councilmember Wire.
Just a few questions. Well, first, I just wanted to add if there anything else you wanted to add, because I know time went by quick. So I know that this has been heavily discussed in the community. So if there's any other thoughts you want us to take away, please do share.
Mahalo, Council Member. I would also be remiss if I did not at least mention that the State Land Board offered Matthew Tang, who is a previous Honolulu shoreline homeowner, to either pay a $188,000 fine and continue his fight against coastal erosion or remove his home completely, which he did end up opting to remove his home from that Honolulu shoreline address. This example is within the same city district as the proposed SMA, and the Land Board stated that it is the responsibility of the homeowner to do its due diligence. And as reflected in the previously mentioned Kahaluu Neighborhood Board July meeting, the community did not agree that the homeowner has completed its due diligence at that time. I'm not sure what has occurred in technicalities since then. We did see Ms. Scherzinger attend the February meeting. It was not agendized. It was a community concern. It cannot be agendized for any future Kahaluu Neighborhood Board meetings, as she did meet with 3+ members of the Kahaluu Neighborhood Board prior to that February meeting, and it would be a sunshine law violation to continue any discussions or take any action thereafter. I do want to point out that if we're going to continue to maintain what few rural communities we have left here, and Kahaluu is one of them, that we need to make sure that we're having uniformity across the board. So if we're saying people like Matthew Tang need to remove their home for integrity of, the shoreline and coastal erosion, then we need to also consider why we would allow a brand new build in a similar community. And I believe that is all I have for you today.
Okay, mahalo. I was going to move to amend to include the language that was mentioned, but I'm not sure if we got that written down or if you want me to ask her to repeat it. Jesse, could you maybe repeat
Ms.
the...
Makanai, what is LSA?
LFA is Little Fire Ant.
Oh, Fire Ant.
LFA. Yes, mahalo, Chair.
We thought it was LSA. It's
Kalamai.
FA. Fire Ants.
Yes, correct.
Okay, got it. Any further discussion? Members? Oh, excuse me. Madam Clerk, are there any more remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, great. At this point in time, we'll proceed with in-person testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any in-person testimony?
Chair, there are none.
Great, okay. Members, we are now in discussion. So the chair has a question for Mr. Hayes. Are you opposed to the committee chair's draft as far as the committee draft 1?
No.
Okay. Okay, great. And Mr. Hayes, one more question. I think you'd probably be in support of addressing the LFA, the fire ants, local fire ants.
Yeah, certainly LFA are a known concern in the community there. I don't believe there have been any detections in the coastal area. Most are in the Mauka area, but we could address that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions at this point in time? Okay, at this time, thank you very much, Mr. Hayes. The chair recommends that Resolution 24-71 be amended to the first hand-carried committee draft 1. Are there any discussions? Oh, I have to say, okay, OCS, Office of Council Services, 2024-0330/4/2/2024 at 2:31 p.m. And at this point in time, members, we are going to do a further amendment at the request of Councilmember Wire in regards to incorporating LFA testing. Okay. Okay. Is that okay? Okay. Staff wants me to state it once more that we are going to incorporate it as we discussed through your discussion. Okay, Councilmember Wire? So let's reiterate it one more time. The chair recommends that Resolution 24-71 be amended to the hand-carried CD1 of OCS 2024-330/4/2/2024 at 2:31 p.m. and further amended to incorporate the language of what Councilmember Wire has stated, which is the LFA. Any discussion? LFA is that local fire ants. Little. I call it local. Little. Okay. Okay, any discussion, any objections or reservations? Hearing none. The resolution has been amended to a committee draft 1. Then the chair recommends that Resolution 24-71, Committee Draft 1, be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Rep Wire, please.
Mahalo,
Councilmember Wire.
Mahalo, Chair, and do appreciate the amendments. I will still be voting no on the resolution at this time. I'm just concerned that the community was so overwhelmingly against it just in the conversations that have been had publicly and without an opportunity to thoroughly revisit the conversation and do an analysis of just the findings that DPP and the representative have done. It's hard to not have that feedback. I think my initial request was going to be to grant an extension to allow for further community feedback, but it is my understanding that the neighborhood board has been concerned about maybe not agendizing the item further. Given that, I'll defer to the chair on proceeding. And so if we're gonna follow the recommendation today, I'll be voting no.
Okay.
Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Okay. So there is the discussion. There is one objections, the objections of Councilmember Wire. So hearing none, this particular this resolution is adopted with one no. Okay? Everybody's in line, okay? Oh, we have to do roll call? No. That's okay. Let's proceed on to agenda number 6. Resolution 20-80. This resolution amends Resolution 17-221 CD1 as amended by Resolution 20-170 CD1 as further amended by Resolution 23-272 Committee Draft 1 to further extend the deadline to obtain a building permit for an interim planned development transit project located at 1500 Kapilani Boulevard and to approve certain project modifications. Members, we have distributed a hand-carried proposed CD1 version of the resolution, OCS 2024-034/4/2/2024 at 4:12 p.m. For your information, there is also the hand-carried CD1 makes the following amendments. Okay, where is that? Okay, let's start off with this thick piece. The proposed committee draft 1 makes the following amendments. We amend the resolution title to read as follows, amending once more Resolution 17-221 CD1 as amended by Resolution 20-170 CD1 as further amended by Resolution 23-272 CD1 to further extend the deadline to obtain a building permit for an interim planned development transit project located at 1500 Kapilani Boulevard and to approve certain project modifications. B, we amend the 6th whereas clause to clarify the summary of Resolution 23-272 CD1. C, we amend the 7th whereas clause to provide that the applicant proposes a project modification to increase the number of affordable rental units from 78 dwelling units to 109 instead of 110 dwelling units consisting of 8 studio units, 101 one-bedroom units, which would result in approximately 20% of the total 560 project units being affordable and rented to senior households aged 55 years or older, earning 80% or below of the area median income for Honolulu for a minimum of 60-year period. We also add the fact that 1 two-bedroom unit will be in the project's affordable housing tower, which will be the manager's unit. D, we add an 8th whereas clause to provide that the applicant proposes to add the 31 additional affordable rental units to the affordable unit tower that will be constructed above the existing parking structure, convert 1 level of parking into a floor of affordable units, modify the floor plans of the affordable unit tower, and modify the floor plans to reduce the total floor area of the condo hotel towers, so that the 400-foot height and maximum floor area ratio of 9.215 for the project is maintained. Once more, it's going to be a 400-foot height limit and the maximum floor area ratio, the FAR of 9.215 for the project. It's in reference to exhibits A1 through A7. E, in the now 9th whereas clause, we delete the reference to Department of Communication of 2024. F adds a 10th whereas clause to describe the applicant's justification for a further 36-month extension of the deadline to obtain a building permit for the project. G adds an 11th whereas clause to provide that on March 27th of 2024, the DPP, having duly considered the applicant's project modification proposal and request for a further 36-month extension of the deadline to obtain a building permit for the project, completed its report and transmitted its findings and recommendations of the approval to the council. To the members of the zoning committee, I apologize to all of you. If you think about it, it's not fair that we just received it last week. Right? March 27th, 2024. I want you folks to be aware how much we are accommodating. H amends the 12th whereas clause to provide that the council receive the DPP findings and recommendations by Department of Communication 211 of 2024. I, we delete the bid resolve clause and replaces it with a bid resolve clause, providing that condition F of resolution 17-221, committee draft 1, is amended to read in its entirety as follows. What's 17 in this resolution? That's the year. That's the year the resolution was adopted. The applicant shall provide a minimum of 109 affordable units consisting of 8 studio units and 101 one-bedroom units, subject to the adjustments required under the DPP's affordable housing rules, to be rented to senior households aged 55 years or older, earning 80% or below of the area median income determined by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development annually for the Honolulu metropolitan statistical area as adjusted for household size, which is called the AMI, and to remain affordable for a minimum period of 60 years. For the general public, I hope you understand, these AMI figures are developed by who? HUD. HUD. But they look at the council members as the ones that's doing it. Okay? I just want to clarify for the record. Application of the affordable housing rules is required, including the room factor calculation. 1 two-bedroom unit in the project's affordable housing tower will be the manager's unit. That's fine. A certificate of occupancy for the required affordable rental units must be issued prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the condo hotel units and penthouse residential unit. You folks understand that sentence? What did I put in that provision. A certificate of occupancy for the required affordable rental units must be issued prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the condo hotel units and penthouse residential units. So all I'm saying, do your affordable first before you do your condotel. If that's the goal and objectives of this council, affordable housing in the increase. J, add a bid further resolve clause to provide that condition S of resolution 17, 2017 of 2021, committee draft 1 is amended to read in its entirety. The project S must conform to the updated conceptual plan approved by resolution 24-80 CD1 and attached thereto Exhibit B, which is incorporated by reference herein and all conditions established herein and pursuant to Resolution 20-170, Committee Draft 1, Resolution 23-272, CD1, and Resolution 24-80, CD1. Minor modifications to the project that do not significantly alter the size or nature of the project and remain in conformance with the updated conceptual plan and all conditions in Resolution 17 of Resolution 17 22-1 CD1, Resolution 20-170 CD1, and Resolution 23-272 CD1 may be approved by the Department of Planning and Permitting Director. Any increase in height or density of the project or other significant alterations or change to the conceptual plan will be considered a major modification and require once more council approval. And K adds a second bid further resolve clause to provide that a condition A of resolution 20-170 CD1 is amended to read in its entirety as follows. Except as modified by these conditions of approval, the project must conform to the updated conceptual plan approved by resolution 24-80 CD1 and attached thereto Exhibit B. 2. Comply with the conditions of the approval set forth in Resolution 17 of Resolution 17-221 of Committee Draft 1 as amended by Resolution 24-80 CD1, and 3. Comply with the conditions of the approval set forth in the project Special District Permit, file number 2017/SDD/24, as amended to reflect the amendments made by Resolution 24-80 CD1. L adds a third be it further resolved clause to require the Department of Planning and Permitting Director to amend the project's Special District Major Permit file number 2017/SDD/24 to reflect the amendments to conditions F and S of Resolution 17-221 of Committee Draft 1. M, as a fourth, be it resolved, further resolved clause to require that the applicant, within 12 months after the effective date of this resolution, submit to DPP for review and execution an updated 1500 Kapi'olani Affordable Housing Regulatory Agreement to reflect the amendments of F and S of Resolution 17-221, Committee Draft 1. And as a fifth, be it further resolved clause to provide that Resolution 17-221, Committee Draft 1 as amended by Resolution 20-170, Committee Draft 1, and as further amended by Resolution 23-272, Committee Draft 1, is further amended to extend the deadline to obtain a building permit for the project by another 36 months to April 24 of 2027. O adds a sixth be it resolved clause to provide that, except as modified in the resolution, all other conditions and provisions of the resolution 17-221, Committee Draft 1, Resolution 20-170, Committee Draft 1, and Resolution 23-272, Committee Draft 1 are ratified and confirmed and remain in full force and effect. P, replaces exhibits A1 through A7 with higher resolution exhibits, deletes attachment A to the resolution, adds exhibit B to the resolution, which depicts the project's updated conceptual plan. And finally, Q, making miscellaneous technical and non-substantive amendments. I know it's a lot, but this particular project goes back almost 8 years now. Excuse me, from 2017. This is 2014. This is 2024. We do want the project, and these were just requests. Okay, at this point in time, okay, at this point in time, joining us in the council chamber would be Mr. Isaiah Sato for RM Tao, the applicant's agent. He will be providing a brief presentation for your information. The presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 147 of 2024. Members, are there any questions for the applicants before why don't he start first? Go. Please, Mr. Sato.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Say. Good morning, Councilmember Say, members of the Zoning Committee, and Councilmember Tupola. Thanks for having us here today. My name is Isaiah Sato, and I work with RM Tao Corporation. We're the agent for the developer Manaolana Partners, who's developing this project. Today, I'm going to be talking about Resolution 24-80 CD1, an extension to the deadline to obtain a building permit for the 1500 Kapiolani IPDT. Right off the bat, I wanted to say that we're in support of the CD1, and we thank you for all your hard work on that. Okay, this slide shows our project. So our project is an approved mixed-use development that consists of 109 affordable rental units reserved for kupuna, 1 manager's unit for that rental building, 444 condo hotel units, 6 residential units, and roughly 8,500 square feet of commercial space. Our project is shown on the right half of the screen. There's essentially 3 buildings. There's the lower affordable rental structure on the left side of this image, and the 2 towers to the right. All 3 of those portions are part of this joint development there. This next slide has a location map. So our project is near the corner of Kapiolani Boulevard and Keaumoku Street. That corner is the old Walgreens Auto Source. So we're not on that lot. We start on the Walgreens parking structure or the Auto Source parking structure, and we extend into the Heald College building there. So the parking structure will actually remain. We're going to be developing the affordable rental building above that structure, and the Heald College, the old Heald College building, we're going to be demolishing that and reconstructing that there. We have Kapiolani Boulevard on the Makai side of the project and Makaloa Street on the Malka side there. This slide has more info on our affordable rentals. So again, it's 109 affordable rental units, 1 manager's unit. So the 109 units are all studio and 1 bedrooms there, and the manager's unit is going to be a 2-bedroom manager's unit. The kupuna we're reserving for ages 62 and up, earning up to 80% AMI. That's the plan. The resolution currently says 55 years and older. We're hoping to actually target 62 and older. Our audience, we're hoping to have retired folk with fixed income that we can keep in here, but the 55 and older gives us some flexibility if something changes in our plans down the line. Again, the AMI range is 80% AMI and below, and as Councilmember Say mentioned, this is determined by HUD. Those rates are set for 60 years, or it's going to be affordable for 60 years, but the rates are reset every year as determined by HUD. The average unit size is above 440 square feet, and with our site, we're going to have great access to public transportation, shopping, and recreation as well. This slide has a little more detail on the affordable unit breakdown as well as what changed since our original approval. So starting on the left side of this image, we have our affordable unit. So there's going to be 8 studios, 101 1-bedrooms, and the 1 2-bedroom manager's unit there. So, with our extension request, our 3-year extension request, we've always been in talks with City Council. And, while we were working with the council, what we heard was there's a very urgent need for affordable housing. So we went back on our side. We worked with our engineers and architects, and we looked at how we could provide more affordable housing units in this area. So we're able to get 32 additional units, which is reflected in the right table as well. So kind of in those 2 middle columns there, we show that in the 2017 resolution, we had 77 affordable residential units, and there was 1 affordable managers unit there as well. In that, the far 2 right columns, we've boosted that to 109 residential units with the same 1 manager's unit. So we added 32 affordable rental units there, getting our total to roughly 20% of the total unit count. So the condo hotel, the 6 market residential, those are the same count there. These next 2 slides, just wanted to briefly share some of the design changes that we did to accommodate these units. So the first thing we needed to do, to get our additional units, we didn't want to shrink the existing affordable units. We wanted to add additional units there. So we needed more floor area to be allocated towards the affordable rentals. So what we did was we reduced the floor area on the condo hotel portion of the project by 14,900 feet. So we did this by removing, in this image it's shown in the areas in blue, but we removed the areas that were covered, or we shrunk down some areas to get 15,000 less square feet on that side, and we moved that floor area to the affordable housing side. So by doing this analysis and redesign, we're able to remain within the 9.2 floor area ratio, as Councilmember Say mentioned. On this next slide, we go into a little more of our design modification. So again, we didn't want to shrink any of the units, and so what we did was we elongated our building. On the left side, the top half is what was before, and the bottom half is what is currently proposed. So we elongated it towards the upper part of the screen, or Malka side, to get 2 additional units per floor. So we're able to extend the floor plan there. In addition, we converted 1 level of parking to floor area, and this was in line with some of the TOD objectives and goals to have more multimodal transportation, there with bicycle stalls as well as with pedestrian access as well. So we reduced the number of parking stalls. Again, we were able to maintain our unit type and size as well. This next slide touches on some of the economic benefits of our project. So, this development accounts for about a $575 million reinvestment into the core of Ala Moana area, right across Ala Moana Shopping Center. For tax revenue, we're at 37.8 million in annual tax revenues for the state and city in perpetuity. The next number, 22.9 million, is our estimated community benefits package, which includes bike share, as well as other benefits there. I wanted to note that these numbers are a little bit updated from our earlier numbers in 2017. We updated it to the current tax rules. The next 2 numbers, I wanted to state that we have 1,000 plus jobs each year during development that are created with this project, and 900 permanent full-time jobs once we're operational. We'll also be bringing a bunch of new customers to the area, and we're hoping to drive economic growth in the community. This next slide, we briefly talk about our architecturally distinctive design. We oriented our buildings in the Malcolm Mackay orientation, and we also were able to really create a unique design with a sky garden, or an amenity deck that links the 2 condo hotel towers there as well. This next slide briefly touches upon our project in support of the Ala Moana TOD plan. So we're, with this development, we're going to be providing sidewalk improvements all the way to Kapiolani Boulevard and to Makaloa Street in the back. So we're working to create a walkable mixed-use environment, diversifying the housing supply, generating jobs, tax dollars, as well as stimulating the economy there as well. And that's the end of my presentation. I just wanted to end with thanking DPP for diligently working on processing our request. And I also wanted to thank the council for being strong advocates of affordable housing and working with us through this process as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions for the agent or the developer at this point in time? If not, maybe let's proceed on to the Department of Planning and Permitting. Later on.
Thank you, Chair. We're supportive of this project, and we have no objections to the proposed CD1. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, are there any? Oops. Oh, okay. The staff wants me to ask the applicant some questions. This is for the record. Okay. Okay, Mr. Sato. What is your forecast in regards to a firm commitment for the project being done? Or can I just say it in another manner? Can we get a firm commitment that you plan to follow through and develop the project and do not have any intentions or plans to sell the property with entitlements to another developer or person?
Thanks for that question, Councilmember. Yes, we're committed to the project and we're hoping to proceed.
Okay, that's for the record. Thank you. Number two, for the project's 109 senior affordable rental units that are being offered, as a community benefit to offset the project's increased height and density, you are probably aware that the community benefit should not be commensurate with the, should be commensurate value to the bonus height and density that you presented. Will you or the nonprofit housing corporation you are working with to construct the project's affordable rental tower above the existing parking structure be seeking federal or state financing awards or subsidies to develop the affordable units, such as the federal low-income housing tax credit, rental housing, etc.? If you are, wouldn't that be considered double dipping?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councilmember. So in our development, we're partnering with EAH to develop the affordable rental housing. Our developer, really wanted to partner with a local affordable housing developer that knew how to get affordable housing development done here. With response to your question, we do plan to pursue LIHTC or other state subsidies for our project there. One thing, with working on these subsidies is we're able to get our AMIs to very low levels. As you may know, with LIHTC, the average AMI level needs to be below 60%, with a portion at 30% or below there. So with these state subsidies, we'll be able to really keep our AMIs at very affordable levels for our community. With our community benefits package, where we are providing, like the land and the parcel value there, we will be building additional parking levels and spending money reinforcing the existing garage on that affordable rental size. The client has also been spending money on some of the architects and engineering design, like we've shown in these renderings today as well.
So your statement for the record would be that, yes, they will be applying for state or federal subsidies.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, don't you consider that unfair for the general public at large, who are the ones that doesn't have the voice in reference to why should we be giving you the community benefits in regards to the FAR and the height? What is the commensurate value of that?
Aloha, this is Dave. I'm David Tanoy. I'm with RM Tower Corporation. I'll try and see if I can answer that question for you, Councilmember Say. I think it's, when we're reviewing in a bigger picture, reviewing a land use permit, dipping into what we can't commit at this point. It was difficult to commit what our development partner for the affordable housing will do for their project. We don't consider it double dipping. I think we're all supportive of any kind of affordable housing projects that's move forward. And for this situation, how they finance or how they get their programs together to provide affordable housing, we'll be supportive of it.
Mr. Tanoy, for me, that's not an answer that I thought that you would be able to very honestly share that all I'm asking is how do you make a valuation of the commensuration of the floor area ratio that we are granting you along with the height, which is a 400-foot tower? If you can't answer that, it's all right. It's just that I just want to have it on the record.
Yeah. I think, continuing on a little bit, I don't think it's double dipping. It's the council's, that's part of what council members have to weigh, the community benefits, to see if it is commensurate with the exemptions that are being requested. Back in 2017, in the original proposal, like was said, that there are 78 affordable housing units, and I think we, like Mr. Sato mentioned, that we were able to hear, or we heard council clearly previously, that really the policy push for more affordable housing, and that's why we work with the developers, and we're able to squeeze within the approved envelope that was previously granted the project 32 additional units.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the developer's agent at this point in time? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed on. We did call the director. Okay. We did call for remote test. Nope. Madam Clerk, are there any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. Madam Clerk, are there any in-person testimony?
Yes, Chair. We have testifiers standing by.
Okay. Please. Ms. Katrina Kamge?
Hi. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Thank you for this chance to testify. My name is Katrina Kamagay. I am a union hotel worker, and I am with Local 5. I am renting an apartment at Kaheka area. I hope to buy a place for my own someday. I am still young, but I feel like it will be very difficult to accomplish that dream. And sometimes I lose hope, seeing that the cost of living in our island gets more and more expensive every day. I am very certain that many people, including our kupunas, worry about the same thing I worry about. I'm voicing my support to push forward with the development project at 1500 Kapiolani Boulevard because there is a shortage of affordable housing in Hawaii. I believe that the development will be great for our community, given that there will be more affordable housing for our kupunas. Mahalo.
Okay, any questions for Katrina? Members, Katrina? I have a question as a chair. Could you give Mr. Say a deadline about when you want the affordables to be completed?
I mean, I guess cannot clearly say, but I'm hoping that within 2027.
Okay, got it. You're tying it in with the deadlines. Got it. Okay, we have Tyrus Kawashima. Tyrus, please come on up.
Hello, my name is Tyrus Kawashima. I'm a Local 5 member. I'm in support of this just purely because I do believe affordable housing is a huge issue within our entire state. Just recently, my wife and I got denied a loan to even purchase my in-laws house, and it was only for 20 grand. And just because I don't, me and my wife don't make enough money to even afford that. So it's a huge issue for me, and that's why I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Tyrus? If not, we proceed on to Narissa Ekdal. Narissa?
Aloha, my name is Nerissa Akdal, hotel workers, but actually me and my husband is working at the hotel, but technically right now I'm in under work com. Right now, paying 2,600 a month, it's very, very struggling to me because I'm a mother of three too. That's why I'm hoping that I can, have an affordable housing so I can put money on a side so when my time comes to, like the kupunas retired, I don't like living in like being homeless. So hope I support in this 1500 with Kapilani because kupuna is very very like important right now because I heard some of the kupunas like they're struggling or because their pension is not enough to pay for their housing. So yeah, I in support with this Kapilani.
Thank you very much. Members,
Thank
any
you.
questions for Narissa? If not, Sonia Hara.
Aloha. Thank you. We are here today to be heard. My name is Sonia Hara. I'm a proud Unite Here Local 5, and I'm a hotel worker, a single mother of 4. I'm supporting this 1500 Kapilani Boulevard, especially the affordable housing, because I'm dreaming in my entire life, working so hard in this island to have a home, to be cold, and to be stay safe and sound with my 4 daughters. So I'm supporting this project, 1500 Kapula. Sorry, I'm so emotional. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Mary Glenn?
Good morning to all of you guys. My name is Mary Glenn. I'm housekeeping in modern. I'm support this 1500 Kapilani because I'm not afford to rent because I have 3 kids, and one more thing, even if for example, if I'm dying tomorrow, I don't know how to happen to my 3 kids. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Mary Glenn? If not, Puri Ibalio.
Hi, good morning to everyone. I'm Puri Balyo. I'm a hotel worker, and I support this bill because right now the cost of rent is so high, and I have a good pay, but then because of this rental stuff that is so high and cost of living is so high, so I support this bill, Kapilani. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience? Yes. Please come on up.
Hi, aloha. My name is Jean Te'o Gibney, and I support this. I do own a home, but I represent many workers at the hotel for Waikiki as well as Turtle Bay Resort. And I see many of our older generation workers that can't afford a home, and they really need one. And it breaks my heart when I see kupunas on the side of the street digging for aluminum cans so that they can have some sort of cash, because the money that they have is not enough. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you very much. Next.
Aloha, Chair. Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. Pani Miatonga, Deputy Political Director for Operating Engineers, Local 3. Just wanted to state our support for Resolution 2480 for the extending the deadline to obtain the building permit for the project at 1500 Kapiolani Boulevard. It's kind of deja vu that we're back here again for this, but I wanted to just commend the chair and the committee for these new provisions, especially in regards to the affordable housing. I'm happy to see that everyone here is working together, trying to make this project move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Emmanuel Zibakalam here on behalf of the Laborers Union. We'd just like to reiterate our support as well as stand on our written testimony. I'm going to take a step back and take a step forward. Emmanuel Zibakalam here on behalf of the plumbers, 676. Thank you again for taking this up. I'd like to stand on our written testimony and reiterate our support.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jolie.
Jolie Tokusato representing Unite Here Local 5. Thank you, Chair Say, Vice Chair and the members. I can barely talk, sorry. We are in support of Resolution 2480 approving the extension of time to obtain a building permit for 1500 Kapiolani project. We appreciate the developer's revised proposal for an additional 32 affordable units. And we also support the move to convert one level of the proposed parking garage to use to expand the affordable rental component. The efforts of the members of this council to push for more for the community from this developer and the developer's efforts to change the project to make this possible have resulted in a better development proposal with meaningful movement toward the creation of a much-needed affordable housing in Honolulu. The developer has reached out to the community in recent months and worked with the stakeholders on their concerns, and we have confidence that they will continue to do so. So thank you so much, Chair Say. Thank you, members.
Thank you very much.
Aloha, Chair and committee members. I'm Angie Knight with the Institute for Human Services. We stand in support of this development on 1500 Kapiolani. We see firsthand the rising increase in elderly homelessness, and we see that this development and the expansion to now have even more units very critical for the need. A lot of our kapuna are on fixed income, and these rental units are for the lower AMI levels, which are often the clients that we see. So yeah, thank you for your consideration. Mahalo.
Ms. King, Angie, could you come on up? The chair has a couple of questions.
So sorry.
The first question is that all of us here would like to see affordable housing.
Yes.
And with developments that are occurring, we just want to get a balance of what benefits can the developer gives back, right? Because government cannot finance everything by itself. So my question, representing IHS.
Yes.
What else can we do to increase the number of rental units? I apologize to all these testifiers because some of them are saying we want to buy it in fee. This is not a fee property.
No.
And that's the kind of miscommunication we're having. This is just a rental.
Yes.
And when I see the testifiers, they have maybe 20, 30 years from now before they hit age 55. So all I'm saying from my heart, it's great that they're here. And I'm happy that they're here. And going through this exercise, which is public participation, as government in its true form, you get to see how we react to things. And my point to you this morning is that we are trying our best with all different types of tools. But government itself cannot provide everything. And this is what happened this past week when we had our budget presentations. So in closing, I'm sorry and I apologize to the agent when I asked these hard questions. It was on behalf of them, all of you right there, in hearing the truth. And that young lady, I hope she's correct, and I hope I'm correct, and I'll be around in 2027, that the affordable housing project will be completed. And that's 3 years, right? And I'm happy to share this with the members and the audience also. The fact of the matter is that I highlighted 2017 was when they first got the council approval. And why has it taken us so long? And then we here are the ones that get the blame for not providing more affordables. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for your public participation in this council meeting.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize the appreciation in making this a rental affordable housing development, because we're seeing more and more for fee affordable rentals, and for the kapuna especially because of upkeep and just life expectancy, the rental is very beneficial. And when you ask about what more we can do for them, it's the supportive services that come alongside of it. And because the location on 1500 Kapiolani is very accessible and you can live an independent life while also having the different service providers that you need to help you maybe with medical or other case managers to come and assist. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Members, any questions for Mrs. King? Okay, Kevin, come on up, Kevin. Kevin and I go back a long time. Please. Oh, press the button.
Aloha, Chair Say, and the members of the zoning committee. Good morning, or is it afternoon yet? Anyhow, I did submit written testimony in strong support of the project. I will stand on that testimony. The reason I came to the podium is that I got an email back saying that I registered to testify remotely, and I expected to get my name called, but since it wasn't called, I wanted to make sure you got my testimony and support. So unless there's any questions, thank you very much.
Yep. You know, Mr. Carney, I think we all have a heart for the ones that are not doing well in society today. I just wanted to see how more and more of our developers could help us in creating these affordable units. And the way our predecessors, the city council, came up with community benefits, like the height and the FARs, that I thought was benefits to the developer in going up, and also vertical and horizontal. And I'm just trying to figure out what is commensurate to these type of projects that, how can we get more units for our people that's behind you, the working class people?
Well, that's a problem the state's been struggling with for many, many years, Chair. You know, number one, we're limited in land, as pointed out by you, Hero. We're very limited on developable land. We're very limited on zoned land for residential. So that right there makes the price of land very expensive. And as you know, I worked for EAH Housing, a nonprofit developer, for over 26 years. And in most cases, we could not afford to pay for the land. And that's particularly true when you're talking about the price of land on Kapiolani Boulevard. So we depend on other developers who have, for lack of a better term, inclusionary requirements to provide rental housing, and try to work with them to pick up a piece of parcel or parcel of property that we couldn't afford otherwise. And you're not going to get low-income housing at those AMI levels, right, unless you get other subsidies. It's just, if it was possible to be done, it would have been done, and it hasn't been done. So I'm still using the corporate we, to develop affordable low-income rentals, you need a lot of subsidies from a lot of sources. We prefer to call it public-private partnerships, if you will, because LIHTC is a public-private partnership. As well as partnering with the HHFDC, which is the state, for rental housing revolving funds, for bonds, and for grants and loans, et cetera. So the capital stacks for low-income rental projects can be anywhere from 5 to 12 or more. That means a lot of oversight, which is a good thing. A lot of regulatory requirements from each one of those lenders, which is a good thing. So you wind up with a good product in the long run, serving low-income people who need it very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Members, any further questions before we conclude the discussion? If not, one final question for the agent, if you don't mind. Isaiah? What's the question again? Are they in support of the... Oh, yeah. Mr. Sato, if I'm not mistaken, at the beginning of your presentation, you did state for the record that you do support the CD1.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, members, can we go into?
Oh, wait, discussion. Thank you. First off, I want to thank the chair for submitting his CD requests. I also support that. I would also like to thank the work of the applicant and the applicant's representatives, and also the developers and everyone else who've worked to get to a point to listen to the council. And I just want to reiterate that the council's stance is on behalf of the whole community, right? The need for affordable housing. I also want to reiterate that accepting this project for me and allowing for a condotel for hotel units outside of the new convention center sub-district is something that I have had to come to terms with, noting that this project has vested from 2017, while our adopted plan was an ROH section, was as stated in ROH section 21-9.100, was adopted in 2020, before all of us were on the council. And so I just want to state that while I do support the extension now, that moving forward with hotel units outside of the convention center sub-district is something that I will not support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any other discussion? Please. This discussion, can I just share this? Okay, Council Member DeSanto Sam.
Thank you. I actually have a question for DPP. Is there someone from DPP? This
Yep, Director
should be a fairly
Apuna is here.
Short question. Chair, in your CD1, you're proposing that certificate of occupancy for the rental units be issued prior to the certificate of occupancy for the condo hotel units. Is this something that DPP feels confident that they're able to do? I ask this in the most loving way possible, but we're dealing later on in this agenda with some Bill 3 projects, many of which are being held up because of certificate of occupancy issues. So I want to make sure that if we're going to provide additional affordable units here, that's not going to be reason to hold up occupancy.
So affordable housing projects do have priority in line for review. So I think that would help them get to where they need to be.
Thank you very much for that question. So if there is no further discussion, or objections or reservations, at this time, then the chair would like to recommend that Resolution 24-80 be amended to the hand-carried CD1. OCS 2024-0340/4/2/2024 at 4:20 p.m. So if there is no discussion, objections, or reservations, hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 24-80 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Okay, thank you very much. At this point in time, with the members in, before it's adopted, so best wishes, get the job done by 2027. Members, at this time, with your indulgence, we will be pushing up bills 57 and 58 to the next agenda item, and we'll be taking them up together on behalf of the testifiers who are here. Okay.
And
yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. And with your further indulgence, could we have the Kalihiuka students go first so they can go back to school?
Okay, got it. I should have. Okay. Yeah. So ordered. Yeah. So ordered. Did I say so ordered that it was adopted? Okay.
Yes. And then you wish them luck.
Okay, members, with your indulgence once more, I wanted to say thank you very much to the general public at large, the testifiers here. We'll be taking out of order Bill 57 and Bill 58, and this relates to game rooms, and the other bill related to authorized personnel. And at this point in time, we'd like to allow the students from the school to testify in these particular measures. Do we call each of them up by one, or okay? Why don't you, Mr. Principal, why don't you come on up and introduce your students? I didn't know.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha Honolulu City Council. I am Clifford, and I support Bill 57, Bill 58, and Resolution 23-228 because it increases penalties for landlords and gives the Honolulu Police Department more tools to enforce. I support these bills because illegal substances are being used in these game rooms, and these drugs can injure or kill people even by getting smell of it. There are also drug dealers that sell drugs to kids or adults, and the drugs can slowly kill the adult or kid who consumes the drug. I support Bill 57, Bill 58, and Resolution 23-228 because some kids might get inspired or influenced by it and might cause them to gamble in the future when they are adults. Students and community members' safety is jeopardized because of these game rooms. When the game room was open, there were people waiting at the courts and playground to enter the game room. The courts and playground are needed for PE and recess for the students at our school, so we can have a safe place for students to play. But the people waiting for the game room at the park made us feel unsafe and uncomfortable. Increasing the fines that landlords have to pay will help to stop the game rooms. So this is why I support Bill 57, Bill 58, and Resolution 23-228. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job. What was your name? Clifford?
Clifford.
Well, Clifford, someday you'll be a politician like Uncle Tyler. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha Honolulu City Council. I am Kaylee and I support Bill 57 and Bill 58 because it increases penalties for landlords and gives the Honolulu Police Department more tools to enforce. I support these bills because illegal substances are being used in these game rooms, and these drugs can injure or kill people by even getting a smell of it. There are also drug dealers that sell drugs to kids or adults, and the drugs can slowly kill the adult or kid who consumes the drug. The various guns and weapons they have can seriously hurt people or cause fatal injuries if the gun is fired. Many students or residents around the area feel unsafe or uncomfortable knowing there's a gambling house nearby or right across the street, but they shouldn't need to worry about getting shot or ingesting a drug. Increasing the fines that landlords have to pay will stop the game rooms. So this is why I support Bill 57, Bill 58. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Aloha Chair and Aloha City Council, Honolulu City Council. I am Isanchin and I support Bill 57, Bill 58 because it can increase penalties for the landlords who allow gambling in their homes. These bills will give HPD more tools to enforce the law. Also, it can stop illegal things like drugs, fighting, and violence. We want them to go away because these things are harmful to the neighborhood. I support Bill 57, Bill 58 because the people who go to gambling rooms do a lot of illegal actions which may be dangerous for kids. In our neighborhood, Kids see adults drinking and getting drunk. Then they start yelling randomly and randomly fighting because their minds don't know what they're doing. Adults in our neighborhood do drugs too. When they are high, they start screaming and doing crazy things. This is scary for kids and the entire neighborhood. Many people in the gambling houses bring weapons because they may have a lot of money and want to protect themselves from people who may steal. This is a problem because when people see a weapon, they may be scared because something bad may happen. I support Bill 57, Bill 58 because we don't want gambling rooms in our community. Drinking, drugs, and weapons in our community is harmful to our neighborhood, our city, and our state. Getting landlords to pay will eventually make them evict the gambling rooms from their homes, which will make our neighborhood safer. Thank you.
Well, attention, you did it right on time. And I can see you in the next 10 to 12 years being a law enforcement officer, enforcing the laws that you just talked about, going after the gambling houses. Thank you very much.
School are trying to learn, but it's distracting when people across the street are drunk and high. When people are yelling, students can be curious about what's happening, which makes them lose learning time. Would not want to keep paying, so they would not allow gambling rooms in their house and in their rooms anymore. Then neighborhoods like ours will be safer for kids. I support Bill 57 and Bill 58 because we don't want gambling rooms in our community. Drinking, drugs, and weapons in our community is harmful to our neighborhood, our city, and our state. Getting landlords to pay will eventually make them evict the gambling rooms from their homes, which will make our neighborhood safer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, any questions for the students, please? I personally felt they did an excellent job in their presentation. Did you folks all write your testimony up yourselves, or did you get the help of your principal or your teacher?
She said they got some help.
Okay, great. Thank you very much at this point in time. At this time, I would like to defer to the introducers of the bill, Council Members Dos Santos Tam and Tupolo, to give us a brief explanation of Bill 57 and 58.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll start off with Bill 58. So Bill 58 is relating to authorized personnel. And I do have a CD1 for consideration today that narrows the scope after meeting with DPP as well as HPD, just to make sure that no one's doing enforcement that's outside of their scope. DPP should be inspectors, HPD should be enforcers, and not either way. However, this bill codifies their relationship in working together, in exchanging information that might be necessary in order to fine or cite individuals that may be doing things on properties that are already illegal in the law. So relating to authorized personnel just clarifies actually something that is currently happening in Councilmember Dos Santos' district with the officers and DPP. Some of my officers in D8 and White and I are also working with DPP, but this will codify it and allow the process to be part of the law in order for us to better enforce on land owners and not on tenants. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, is it Bill 57?
Yep, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to explain Bill 57. This bill does a number of things. The first is it's patterned in large part on the public nuisance language that already exists for prostitution. But we, in the bill, try to define what a gambling-related public nuisance is. Specifically, it's any building, structure, or portion thereof where gambling-related offenses are held or occur, or critically, contain a certain number of electronic or coin-operated gambling devices. These are not the Fun Factory or Dave & Buster kind of devices, but it's a specific type of gambling device that is used in these game rooms. It provides that anyone can make a complaint to the building official to report such a violation, and that person's identity will be kept confidential to the extent by law, as was alluded to by the students as well as Councilmember Tupola. You know, a lot of neighbors are often afraid of these game rooms, and so that was another critical thing. It also creates a extensive penalty structure for people who are found in violation, starting at $1,000 a day and paying a civil fine of $1,000 a day in which the violation persists. In addition, it provides some ability for an appeal to be made. It also allows Corporation Counsel to do judicial enforcement against these game rooms. It makes miscellaneous changes throughout the middle to various parts of the Building and Housing Code. And then critically, again, at the end, it creates a process by which this can be abated. As Councilmember Tupola mentioned, part of the issue is we need to have more tools to go after the landlords where this is happening. I think much of the community frustration with the game rooms is, you know, they see very dramatically HPD coming in and raiding these tools. And that's why I think it's really important that we have this conversation. And I'm very grateful for you for having this conversation today because this has continued to be an issue. I'll note, you know, we introduced this back in September. Since then, in my district in Lower Liliha, there was a shooting at a game room just a few weeks ago. There was a shooting in Kapalama Gardens back in December that was highly publicized. You know, we need more tools, and we need them now, and I look forward to finding a way that we can provide HPD as well as city agencies the tools they need to go after these landlords. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is Councilmember Okimoto? Okay. At this point in time, then we'll now call upon the Director of Department of Planning and Permitting, Ms. Apuna.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the intent of these bills and greatly support the work of HPD to shut down game rooms, as has been hugely successful in the last year with Operation Follow Through, in which HFD and DPP have partnered with HPD to use combined code enforcement powers to fully take down a gambling operation through submission of the landowner. This has been done by allowing each agency to execute under its own authorities and specific expertise. For example, once HPD has performed its sting operation, DPP can enter the property to observe and determine building, electrical, mechanical, and zoning code violations and issue notices of violations as appropriate. Bill 57 seeks to add gambling operations as a public nuisance under Chapter 16, which is the building code. It is listed among other public nuisances, such as on page 9 of the CD1, uncultivated flammable weeds in excess of 18 inches in height located within 30 feet of any building. This is observable and documented by a DPP inspector to be determined to be a violation of Chapter 16 under their currently described position duties as a building inspector. However, Bill 57's listing of any building or structure that is a gambling nuisance or contains electronic gambling devices appears to require that DPP inspectors observe and determine a gambling violation, which is a criminal offense. HPD's ability to establish a gambling offense includes HPD experts trained to analyze the gaming machines to qualify it as a gambling device. As drafted, Bill 57 appears to require DPP inspectors to have this trained expertise, which has evidentiary or evidence-gathering issues, and adds criminal violations to a list of civil violations that DPP inspectors normally inspect for. We are concerned that this bill blurs the line between DPP inspector and HPD officer expertise, where the establishment of the gambling crime is with the DPP inspector. It is best to keep these duties clearly delineated and separate between DPP and HPD, as is currently being done under Operation Follow Through. However, with Bill 58, we are okay to allow HPD officers to adopt some DPP inspector abilities, but not necessarily the reverse of DPP inspectors performing criminal enforcement as provided in Bill 57. Of course, we defer to HPD and the union as the expansion of HPD duties to include DPP duties. Thank you. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much for the thorough presentation. Any questions for the director, which is very pertinent? Okay, Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much, Chair. Aloha, Director. Thank you for giving us that explanation. So in Bill 58, I did work with someone in your department just to narrow it even more. You already said you're okay with it. With the CD1, I just wanted to make sure that authorized personnel separate every time we talked about whoever we were referring to, that it said responsible person, because that has a definition. The definition of responsible person exists, and other words that were used in there actually didn't exist. And then, of course, we replaced the word violators with responsible person because it kind of went back and forth. So what is your thoughts on the CD1? But again, I just want to make sure you guys are still in support of the revisions.
We're fine with the revisions, but again, we would defer to HPD. I think this is more about them gaining different or other authorities. So, but we're fine with it.
Okay, and I did amend it to just allow them to share evidence as opposed to actually issue or even appear in court to testify. I took that out. So in some of the cases where people would be summoned to, I guess, refute their NOV or whatnot, I left it where it would not be an officer that's doing that, seeing as though the NOV may have some portions of what they enforced, but some portions of what they did not. But I'll ask the question to them if they're also in support of this CD1, but thank you. And I'll let Councilmember Dos Santos Tam ask questions about 57.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Specifically to the issue of DPP not being able to determine, as HPD might, whether there is indeed a nuisance and whether gambling-related offenses are held or occur. Certainly, given the existing prostitution-related public nuisance language, DPP is able to utilize a conviction or an arrest to make that determination, right?
On the books, I believe we do, but we don't exercise that. And I think that's kind of the gap, understanding how that evidence is established, whether by HPD or DPP, and the transfer of that evidence, because currently our building inspectors, they have to directly observe the violation. They can't necessarily take pictures or another person's determination and say that there is a criminal violation.
Now, what we're trying to do, however, is fine these landlords, and DPP often does this on the basis of things that they don't necessarily observe. I mean, we do this on short-term rentals because of the existence of an ad on Airbnb. The inspector doesn't have to go there and witness a tourist dragging their luggage in. There's a number of other sort of ways that these complaints can be done. Is this insurmountable, or is this something that we can work on?
I think it's something that the lawyers might want to talk about, prosecuting attorneys, but right now I think it's not clear in the bill how that evidence is established and which department or officer is capable of making a violation based on that evidence.
But that's something that we as the legislative branch can do, right? We can create that process.
Yes, I just, because it goes beyond just making the violation, issuing the violation, the due process and other legal considerations I think are important to ensure that a violation stands and is less susceptible to challenge.
So let me ask in a different way. Right now, DPP enforces a number of things. For example, in a home, you can't have more than 5 unrelated individuals. How do you determine that?
From what I understand, I think we ask the tenant or the people that are there who lives there, is there familial relationships, etc. So sometimes it is based on what they're telling us. And obviously a lot of times they're just going to say, oh, we're just family,
right,
regardless of the facts.
I guess, the issue here is in the bill, one of the triggers for public nuisance is that it contains more than a certain number of electronic or coin-operated gambling devices. I guess right now with DPP, I guess the way that DPP enforces a number of things, it is to some degree a judgment call. It is to some degree based on the inspector's observation or what they can reasonably conclude based on, the facts. I guess what I'd like to just understand is whether it's insurmountable that a DPP inspector can or can't either make a determination on their own or based on the expertise of HPD in the course of raiding a game room, be able to take what HPD says in the same way that they take what somebody at that home with more than 5 unrelated individuals might say.
Yeah, again, I think that's the crux of it, determining how much we can take from HPD to establish a violation. And what's different here is it's a criminal violation mixed with our normal civil violation. So it's different than other ways that we establish a violation, and probably the level of evidence and just procedural due process that's higher, probably a higher standard than the civil violations that we deal with.
But in this bill, we are not creating anything criminal, right? We're creating a structure of civil penalties and fines, which DPP certainly can apply. You do it all day long.
Yes, I agree to that. Yes, that's true.
So really the core of the issue here is simply whether or how DPP would determine that there are or are not electronic or coin-operated gambling devices. That's really the crux here?
It is, and from what I understand from HPD, they have experts in-house that have to play the machines and show that it's a game of chance, et cetera. So I don't foresee that DPP inspectors would do the same type of examination and analysis of these machines to say that it is a gambling device. But yeah, I think that there is that gap that we need to figure out how that evidence is established and how it can be transferred for a DPP inspector to say, this is a violation that I can issue under my authority.
So certainly in many other instances, DPP, does, or actually other agencies as well, does take evidence that the police gather to make any number of findings. I mean, can we not create some structure for this and put it in this bill?
Yeah, again, I think it's something for the lawyers and the prosecuting attorneys to figure out, because the processes are pretty different between civil violations and criminal, and trying to bridge those two. It's a legal issue that I haven't been able to figure out or understand because I'm not a criminal attorney. So, but yeah, I think it's just something that we would have to work with the different agencies to see if it's possible.
Okay, and you're willing to do that?
Yes, but I think I'll leave it to these agencies to say what would make sense, what is legal.
Members, are there any other questions for Director Apuna?
I'll just ask a follow-up. So in the event that we are to amend it or do something that will suffice the concern that you might have, you guys would be in support of 57?
Yes, if we can figure out this legal issue.
Okay.
But then, yeah, I think there might be some HR union issues that could also be involved. So we should kind of look at all of those things. But yeah.
Based upon their scope of work and what's in their collective bargaining.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's all the questions I have for Director.
Yeah, anyone else? Questions for Director Apuna? Okay. I see we have a representative from HPD here. We have Major Lambert. If you'd like to identify yourself and
Good afternoon,
share your
Council.
thoughts. Thank you.
Mike Lambert, Honolulu Police Department, Narcotics Vice Division. Before I start, I just want to say thank you to those kids. It's very inspiring for them to participate, and good job, Principal, bringing up the next generation. Very nice to hear from a law enforcement standpoint that we're not alone in this. But for Bill 57, specifically to Director Apuna's point and concerns, and I really want to say I appreciate her willingness to have these conversations. It would be tricky for them to perhaps establish gambling offenses. So maybe a recommendation there would be to say for 17, something to the context of is a nuisance pursuant to 720, 1270, or upon which violations or provisions set forth and all this stuff are then validated by law enforcement. So in other words, if we say we validated that gambling was occurring, then they can go ahead and act on it. So in other words, it would be our statement, and it kind of goes in line with the further 16A10.3 complaints and inquiry, perhaps inlaying another subsection there that would allow for DPP to basically take a sworn statement from an officer and act upon it. So that would be the recommendations for 57. And then moving into 58, and again, we really want to be careful in stepping on inspectors, and then of course, HPD, we are tremendously short. So taking on additional responsibilities or having it even remotely believe that we now want to do DPP's job, we do not want to have anything like that. So one of the things that can be done for authorized personnel to make it a little easier is if the definition read, any police officer or inspector who has been trained line through the rest for the purpose of enforcing this code. So what that would do is allow DPP to train officers to say that you guys are allowed, we will take evidence for, let's say, narrow doorways, exposed wires, a very narrow list of unsafe things that you don't have to go to college for. So for example, what that would look like in evidence for DPP would be a doorway. We would hold a tape measure, we would take photographs of it. It is narrow than code allows. And again, very similar to the relationship we have with the State Department of Transportation and red light cameras, where a non-law enforcement agency is collecting and then a law enforcement agency go ahead and validates. It would be reverse order for DPP, where a law enforcement agency is collecting and then going ahead and giving it to DPP to go ahead and validate our evidence. And again, they would have the discretion if the photographs are clear, if we have tape measures, for example, for exposed wiring, we have a wiring test that shows that it was exposed and live, things of that nature that DPP could potentially act on. And I guess that would be the relationship. I think the biggest hindrance is that DPP has to see it with their own eyes, which requires them to come out with us. And as we continue on, there could be issues where we're going out at 2 in the morning, or these other times where a DPP inspector would not be available, and it could place an undue burden. So instead of having that, training officers to just collect the evidence that could be result in a notice of violation and then turned over to them would probably be the most practical application without having drastic impact on DPP. And I'm available for questions.
Okay, Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Aloha, Major. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your input and, of course, for your service and all of what we're trying to do to protect our community. So in my CD1, which I'll go through briefly, it basically is suggesting only one thing. So there's 3 sections I touch: building, housing, zoning. They're all very similar. In each of them, it's only going to say one sentence. It's just going to say, the authorized personnel may provide evidence to the building official to issue the notice of violation. That's it.
That's
so you would
clean.
be providing it. That's it.
Correct.
So it won't be you testifying at court, you issuing the NOV or doing anything of the sort. And the definition of authorized personnel is already actually existing, and it does say any police officer or inspector who has been designated by the building official. So to your point, it is going to say that they would have been designated, that they do understand what these things are, and then they could share evidence. So are you in support of the CD1 as outlined by what I said?
Based on your explanation, yes, minus the issue with 58 is that it and deputized by the chief of police. So that becomes tricky for us because if you're deputized, you would have to.
So that existed in the law already.
Correct.
So you're suggesting what?
Suggesting that for this particular amendment, that it's not a special officer.
So you're just saying to line out and deputized by the chief of police?
Right. So I know you discussed earlier the authorized personnel, so perhaps it may have to be trained personnel or some other indicator so you don't have to replace authorized personnel by definition.
Well, I can touch the definition, but just so you know, the definition existed already because on the other sections where we enforce criminality, which actually hasn't been done in decades,
Correct.
but there's sections of this where you can enforce criminal fines of which they want an officer to do it. So I can work with them on that, on whether or not they're fine with it. Like I said, in all 3 sections, we haven't enforced criminality, meaning like taking people to jail for 10 fines. We haven't done that ever.
Sure.
So that's why I think they wrote that. But in your opinion, you're saying, and deputized by the chief of police as a special officer, you're saying that is not necessary.
Yeah, the department's concern is that, fast forward 3-4 years, different council, different interpretation, that HPD would then be deputizing DPP officers, and which would allow them arrest authority. And I don't think we want to go down that path.
Okay, so just to be clear though, the only reason they wrote the word inspector in there is because supposedly back in the day when these fines would get up to 10 or 15,000, they were supposed to allow for an inspector to do this. What you're saying is like, don't do it. I'm just saying that in the law, it said that they could. I know the director's here and I should probably ask her if anyone has ever taken anyone to jail over this, but are you also suggesting to strike, well, I can't strike the word inspector because that's actually in the definition. So you're just saying deputized by the chief of police is unnecessary.
Correct.
Okay, but the rest of it you're okay with?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any further questions? The chair has a question for Officer Lambert.
Yes, sir.
How do you distinguish between a official who does civil cases versus an official that does criminal cases, like law enforcement?
It would just be based on either HRS or ROH into regards to what their actual authority is.
Okay, and that's the problem I have, because we should be not addressing this issue here, but at the state legislature to grant law, not gambling, but gambling as prostitution, because we can't do it as far as the building code or the other sections of our revised ordinances of Honolulu. That is the question I have for myself. How do you distinguish? You know what I'm saying? The building inspector is not an officer of the law. He's an officer of the ordinance dealing with building code violations.
Correct, he's an inspector, yes. Or they are an inspector, yes.
And that's the dilemma that we have. Where's that median? That if you say, I don't think, if I'm a building inspector, I don't want to be deputized to go along with your special forces or your special units. And that's the dilemma that we're facing. I can see where you can just create a major fine, or have the legislature say, if the gambling house is busted 3 times, they forfeit the house. That's the kind of discussion we need. Yes.
I'll add a thought. So what I'm trying to say is that we are all in agreement that no DPP inspector should be deputized by the chief of police, but that language is written in the law right now. I didn't change that. So what we're suggesting is that we change it. So to your point, I think maybe even as we speak on this, that could be struck, which will help us in the future, because that portion of the law we've never accessed. We've never deputized a DPP inspector, even though we're able to do it right now.
And then to add to clarity and to your point, we actually would like to maintain our own responsibilities. The issue here, and I think what the intent of the law is to allow for the information of transfer to then be validated by an inspector. So for example, as it stands now, we can, an HPD can transfer to HFD evidence and they can act on fire code. So all we're asking for is a similar mechanism to where we can transfer evidence to DPP and then they could issue a notice of violation. And again, I don't want to speak for director, but I think that would make the most sense. And it would still be up to their discretion.
Because for Officer Lambert, but the police officer or the undercover officer would not know what the violations are in regards to the building code. They would have to go through some form of training. And, it's like the officer and the inspector doing 2 jobs at the same time, that the jurisdictional issue is very difficult to distinguish.
Sure, and it would be an officer that's willing to take on that additional training. We definitely are not trying to be trained as inspectors, but very basic violations, very common, that could occur or could create public safety issues like exposed wiring. I think goes without saying. That's a fire hazard. And what we have in a lot of our legal game rooms, we have exits that are boarded up and other situations that if there was an incident within the game room, people would be trapped. So we're not looking at the whole code, nor do we want to, just the more blatant violations that create immediate public concern.
Okay. And then one final thought. Would both unions be in agreement to it, your bargaining unit?
I would have to speak with Shopo, but it shouldn't be an issue on Shopo because it would be based on your assignment. So for example, it would be our gambling unit that would have this training as a part of their role.
And for DPP, same thing, right? Collective bargaining. Okay. Yep. Councilmember Cordero.
Okay, sorry, are you still going?
Go.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This question is for Major Lambert. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
But I share Kalihi, a lot of Kapalama and Kalihi Mapunapuna, and of course outside of Kalihi, but also Pro City District. And of course, we have had a lot of work and success done with Operation Follow Through, and I'm very, very grateful. My question is in relation to when we do, when HPD does look at these gaming rooms, and how often, whether it be in the past, before Operation Follow Through, or even now, that you see that there are building code violations.
I can't give you a percentage, but I can say that it's extremely common. Exposed wiring is probably one of the most common dangerous violations that we see because, for example, you could have anywhere of 16 devices in a room, and most places aren't wired for that many large electronics, so a lot of it is makeshift. So it is very common.
Thank you. One particular area, one street in particular that is of concern is on Kalani Street and of course Pu'uhale. And some of the concerns that do bring about, besides violence and other types of concerns, are the types of doors, the lack of access to the buildings. I know that is also part of the building code, but do you see that more often at these gaming rooms or not?
Yes, double locking doors are very common. A lot of times they're electronic based, meaning like what you would see at a jewelry shop, at a high-end jewelry shop. The issue with it is not to code, and in event of an emergency, everyone would be trapped essentially inside.
Oh, okay. So it's not just issue of the code; it's just public safety.
In general, yes.
In general. Okay, understood. But I just want to ask those questions because that comes up, especially in Kalihi and Mapunapuna. And but I just also wanted to reiterate that I'm grateful for the efforts that's been happening in D5 Kalihi. Thank you.
You're welcome, and they appreciate your comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember DeSantos Stan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a question about the process by which HPD, does its observations and then eventually does a raid and follow-up activity, without getting into the details, of course. So I understand that in order to proceed with a raid, there's obviously a lot of kind of undercover activity, surveillance, et cetera, that occurs. In the course of that surveillance and sort of all that undercover work, DPP or HPD officers clearly go into the game rooms and observe different things. They observe the presence of machines. They make a determination whether it's a game of chance versus a game of skill. What else do they kind of look for, generally speaking?
We are focused on the gambling activity as well as the secondary drug and sometimes firearm sales activity. So we are very focused in there. In regards to this legislation, I wouldn't want it on a informant or on an undercover officer to have to be doing inspections. It's already stressful. I was an undercover officer, and I used to do game rooms about 10 years ago. And I can tell you right now, you are worried about so many more things than the size of the doorway. So it's something that we would like to happen after or during a search warrant, where it's much calmer and that those type of inspections can be made.
So it seems to me that maybe the course of action here is to create a trigger by which an HPD officer observes that there are a certain number of gaming devices present, makes a determination that they are indeed a gambling device, not a simple game of chance, or sorry, simple game of skill, and that's enough to then trigger action on the part of DPP, and then they can come in when it's safe and do all of that, and hit the landlord with a bunch of fines.
That would be the hope. So if I can just kind of generally explain what we hope the process would look like to the council, is that an undercover operation would occur, and I'm not going to get into the details of what that looks like, but it would result in either a search warrant or an arrest, right? That means that we've established probable cause in a criminal investigation. And at that point, that's where the trigger would be for where we would, if we observe violations, pass that on to DPP so that it would have a parallel civil investigation occurring. And what the goal is really to let property owners know what's going on their property and hope that they act responsibly. And that's really what we want. So the goal is not to inundate DPP. The goal is not to take on extra responsibilities for HPD. The goal is to do something that lets property owners quickly know what's going on in their property, because nuisance abatement, as quick as it's got, and thank you, Prosecutor for everything he's done, still takes 2 to 3 months. But for example, if we were to hit a search warrant tomorrow and we were to take these photos, and if we were able to establish via charter and via relationship with Director Apuna, we could pass that to her her inspectors rather, and perhaps within 5 to 10 business days, a civil process could be started while we work on the longer processes.
Thank you, and I think that's exactly kind of what we'd also like to see. I have one more question then. In the course of your operation, getting a search warrant, you go in and do the raid, so to speak. Mm-hmm. In the course of that raid, do you confiscate or seize those machines?
Absolutely. We seize the machines, and prior to removing it, we qualify them on the spot. So in other words, we have a law enforcement officer that has been trained as a subject matter expert. I am one of 4, and we will play the game and we will establish it as a gambling device. And at that point, it would be removed, and the room is free, which actually makes it much easier for us to collect evidence on building code violations.
So it seems to me then that perhaps the trigger should be whether a law enforcement agency like yourself has confiscated machines, or whether you've made a determination that there's a certain number of machines, and then all of the other fines can follow.
Correct. That would be ideal, and then that would make 57 easier. In other words, we would perhaps, and work on the format, but we would send like a letterhead saying that we did this search warrant, we established probable cause for gambling. We would attach photographs of our evidence, and then it would be, again, the discretion of DPP to move forward.
So perhaps I can direct this question to Director Apuna. Based on that, if DPP were to, or if HPD were to have a search warrant, do a raid, either confiscate a number of machines, a certain number of machines, or based on the expertise of Major Lambert and his colleagues, make a determination that there are those machines present, is that enough of a trigger for you to be able then to say that there's a reason to declare it a public nuisance and go in and give people civil fines?
I'm not sure. Again, I think it's a legal issue, whether you need a conviction, like you need some type of finality in the, like a criminal conviction in order for us to use that as true evidence of criminal gambling. And then that could, I don't know how long that might take. So I'm not sure. I don't know criminal law, but that could create an issue where it wouldn't necessarily be that quick. But if there's a conviction, I think maybe that makes it a lot easier. I think the lawyers should be consulted.
I suppose the overall goal here is to get to a point where where the game room shuts down itself without even going through this long, drawn-out process of going to court, waiting, getting a conviction, waiting for all of these other things. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to find a way to work that out. But I'm grateful to hear from Major Lambert that perhaps a trigger of confiscation or seizing or impoundment of a gambling device, and then or determination by an expert is sufficient to just give you the ability to go in and do all the things like building code inspections, et cetera, and issue related fines.
Yeah, and I think that's what we do now based on Operation Follow Through. So that's working well. But again, legal issues as far as the evidence and conviction required are, I think that needs to be explored further. Thank you.
Okay, gang, we're going to recess at 1 o'clock. And I apologize to all the testifiers who are here this morning and this afternoon that will reconvene at 4. After this, there are 2 other committee hearings. And members, if you folks can make it for quorum, if not, then we don't have a 4 o'clock meeting.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I do have a few community members here. I think just 2 that came from Waianae to testify.
Yes, we'll accommodate them because yeah, I know you folks have been here a long time. If you folks want to state your position, that would be fine. I see Mr. Ross in the back too, or Ian. Thank you very much for coming. And there's a lot of others who may be here. Shulan is also here. So go. Yeah, to 1:15. Okay, so we'll extend it to 1:15. I'm sorry. Yeah, and then everybody knows that park will start at 1:15. They're supposed to start at 1. Okay, go right ahead. Andrea, who you have
I think you
coming
might
up?
just need to start testimony because they're testifiers.
Yeah, please come on. Come. Oh,
Call in-person testifiers.
okay. At this point in time, we'll now proceed with in-person testimony, please.
So he just said in-person testimony. I don't think he's going to say names, so let's make this happen.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young on behalf of Kapalama Neighborhood Security Watch. I'm in opposition of this bill. If it is revised with a different focus, then I'd be in favor. So this was heard at the Kapule Hale last October, where the Neighborhood Security Watch and Citizens Patrol we walk with in District 8, DHHL Hawaiian Homelands, testified with their team and Major Turner. And we've been trained by the community policing team there, as well as Kapalama District 5 with Major Turner. The technicality of this bill is my rationale for the opposition, and why, although I'm in support of the intention of the bill, I don't think it's enforceable. I think it's not as enforceable as you think it is, as an effort focused
Okay.
with DPP and
Ms. Young,
HPD.
what bill are you testifying on? Both
57, gambling.
57.
Yes.
Okay, and 58.
It's not enforceable as DPP and HPD as a primary authority to regulate the violations. It's not DPP's purview to manage gambling. This is not a criminal matter. This is a civil matter if you are trying to get DPP to manage it, right? And DPP is civil matters. So you need to undercover to cite the evidence in action, such as with narcotics, divisions crimes. The officer has to be undercover to pose as a civilian to witness drug crimes in order by law to enforce the crime, to cite a violation, to issue an arrest. Although this is arbitrary and speculative, this is just my interpretation because I'm not an officer, but I do witness things in the community as Neighborhood Security Watch. So if the bill is revised or a resolution is
Young,
drafted,
your time is up.
to work
We'll
with the
take your
prosecuting
testimony.
attorney.
Okay.
I have
And
a question for the testifier.
Yeah.
Okay, go right ahead.
Angela, I'm disappointed that you are in opposition to this bill as someone who is a part of a neighborhood security watch in Kalihi District 5, where we have stated and have seen that it has successfully been applied in our district. So I'm just a little bit disappointed. So my question is, if it's not working, if we are seeing it working right now, how can you say that it's not enforceable? Thank you.
So maybe I didn't catch that. So it's just my interpretation. I think if the bill were to focus on collaborating with legislating parameters with the prosecuting attorney, the attorney general, and the public defender's office, who have more specialty focuses on gambling and severe cases of crime relating to gambling, instead of DPP being the primary authority to regulate, I think it would be more enforceable. So it's just my interpretation. I'm not
Okay,
saying that it's not
Young,
effective. Yeah.
there are other testifiers. Yep. Okay, Mr. Ross.
Aloha Chair, members of the committee. Thank you very much for this opportunity to testify in strong support. My name is Ian Ross, and I have the honor of being the chair of the Makiki Lower Punch Bowl Tantalus Neighborhood Board. One of the things I want to highlight about this bill, I think is really important,
Ross,
is
Mr. Ian, could you do the two bills, 57 and 58?
Absolutely. Okay, I'll combine my testimony. So I'm in strong support of Bill 57 and 58. The Makiki Lower Punch Bowl Tantalus Neighborhood Board submitted a letter in support of both of these measures passed earlier this year. We're joined by 5 or 6 other neighborhood boards in our strong support for these. And I want to mahalo the introducers of these measures. What we're seeing in our communities is that illegal game rooms are a hotbed for criminal activity. We've spent a lot of time this evening, this afternoon, of course, speaking about gambling, but we're seeing a decrease in quality of life due to assaults, murders, drug crimes, the sale of firearms, and other activities as well. I've heard from HPD there's an estimated 100 illegal game rooms across the island. That's more than the number of McDonald's and 7-Elevens combined. So I urge the members of this committee to consider passing these bills, and I'm in strong support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ross.
Committee, David Corona. I am a neighborhood board member, but I'm here as a representing myself. Thank you for providing the extra time to do this, because I think I'm out of change now. I can't keep on putting it in the meter. So I fully support bills 57 and 58. I look at it in a different aspect. I'm not going to regurgitate a lot of the revised ordinances and things like that to the committee, but the actions of a few have impact for the many, okay? So I've been witnessed in my community on the Leeward Coast. My community has been changed by crime, drugs, homelessness, lawlessness, because of the actions of the few, which is affecting the many. Okay, but I've also been witness to the community trying to take back their neighborhoods through such efforts like the neighborhood security watches, through the churches. And again, a few are impacting the many, but positively. I asked that the committee support 57 and 58 and bring it to a full council vote. I asked that the committee be the few to impact the many. And just I'm concluding right now. My conclusion is this. HPD the speed limit's 55 miles an hour on H1, or on Farrington highways 35 miles an hour, but there's a judgment in there where they judgment of who pull over or not. The chair rail right there has a specific building code height requirement, but different chairs are out there now, can still bang a hole in the wall. So as we modify the ROH for the building code to help make these things come to light, you can modify it in the future, but don't take away from what those kids just said earlier. They're witnessing game rooms right there. It's a negative impact. So thank you for the time, and thank you for extending the time for allowing me to talk.
No, thank you very much for your presence here, Mr. Corona. Ms. Achiu. Is that Mrs. Achiu?
My name is Sabrina Grace, and I come from Waianae. I lease a piece of property that has a game room on it, and I have been trying to get rid of them. I support what Andrea and this gentleman are doing is 57, 58. DPP does not does not come out and regulate what they're supposed to. All of these game rooms are modified and are not safe. But HPD is going to have to accompany these people so they can get in the game room and see what I'm talking about as far as all of the violations. They're all in violation. Major Lambert, for your department, you're going to have to make one unit. They're going to be secret because everybody knows when you guys coming. There's a leak in HPD. And Chair Calvin say you're correct. Go to the legislature, toughen the laws against gambling because it's all a misdemeanor. All this BS about what kind of gambling. The machines are modified. I don't know why you guys don't grab Major Lambert, grab the cashier. She's not even a citizen. She holds $15,000, $20,000 in her purse. Be like the airlines, confiscate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Shulon Kwok.
Thank you, everyone. I know we want to go lunch.
Yeah.
I support Children's Kwok Chinatown Business and Community Association. We support Bill 57 and Bill 58, and good luck to working out all the kinks. We wish you all the best, and then thank you.
Nope, thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in person? If not, members, at this point in time,
Sorry, I just have one neighborhood security watch on the Zoom.
okay, go right ahead. Who's that? We'll now proceed with remote testimony. Madam Clerk, are there any remote testifiers?
Yes, Chair, they're standing by.
Okay. First, we have Christine. Oh, Alan Cardenas, yes. Alan?
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, member of the committees. I'm here today in strong support of Bill 57 and 58. We're tired of being terrorized in our community. We're done. We need help. We ask for your bold, courageous leadership to be able to fix the gaps in such a way that Mike and Director Apuna can be able to get this thing done. Organized crime out there are successful because they're organized. Can you imagine if we get organized, we deal with the kinks and so forth, we can make a difference. So again, I stand in strong support. We've witnessed prostitution, robberies, rave parties, one drug house in Nanakuli Homestead for over 20 years, Chair, 20 years. And I believe this will add support to a pilot program that Mike is doing, HPD, along with DHHL, and we can start creating safer and more caring communities, but we just got to be bold and courageous in the next 5 seconds that I get. So thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Miss Christine Otazai. Christine?
Good afternoon, council members. I strongly support Bills 57 and 58. The foreigners that are operating these illegal game rooms have no regard for people and communities. Greed drives their behavior, so we need tools to change that behavior. Hit them where it matters to them in their pocketbook, higher fines, and take away their property. The police are chasing their tails by raiding these game rooms over and over, only for them to open up the next week. Nothing is done higher up to attack the problem. I do ask that you include language in the bill to allow the city to hire outside counsel that has the expertise to confiscate property. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Members, at this point in time, are there any more remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. In-person testimony, there is none. Okay, if you folks don't mind, the chair would like to recess till 4 p.m. since we have another committee hearing supposedly at 1. Yeah? Yes, Councilmember De Santos Stamp.
Chair, just to clarify, if we don't have a quorum at 4 o'clock, then what are we going to do?
We'll just have to recess and come back with another posting of a new agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Are we allowed to do that if we already listed the agenda items? I don't think so.
No, you can recess and then bring it up a later time. The committee at this point. Yeah, we have quorum. Yeah, when we reconvene, that's the question you posed. We have to have a quorum, yes. If they're going to come. And then we have, well, okay, at this point in time. Okay, for the audience, we'll be in recess till 4 p.m. since there are 2 other committee meetings in place of what we're doing right now. Okay, so we'll recess and reconvene at 4 p.m. Good, thank you.